across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's Friday and it's coming up to 3 minutes past 6, and here we are, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of another amazing week of news. I mean, it's hard to imagine quite how much news there is. As I say every morning quite often, I don't know how I'm going to squeeze it all in into 4 hours. We're here, of course, for 4 glorious hours of Morning Glory, all the way through until 10 a.m. Emma Wolf is here to help us look through the papers this morning, and there is an awful lot of stuff to be getting on with, I have to tell you. And much of it involves this failing government, I'm afraid, despite the fact that they tried to give us all a big lift with their wonderful announcement that they're going to open a theme park at some point in the future. Could be 6 years away, could be 10 years away, maybe it'll never happen. That sort of what you might call theme park bounce has gone very flat indeed, because this morning we've got Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, refusing to intervene in the story about West Yorkshire Police deliberately not recruiting white people and asking for a complete block on white recruits coming into the police force. She says she's not going to intervene because it's none of her business. Well, guess what, Yvette? You're the bleeding Home Secretary. You run the police in this country. It is your business, and you better get on it, or else there's going to be a major problem for you and for your government. Keir Starmer, meanwhile, is facing a rebellion on the grooming gangs, the rape gangs, because once again, of course, Jess Phillips got up in the very last knockings of the parliamentary session just before the Easter recess, which is currently ongoing, to say there would not be a national inquiry into grooming gangs. This is a story that's been running all week. We're not going to let it go because somebody needs to do something about it. And some people are already starting to say that the rebellion on the back benches and blue Labour could bring this government down. Something will bring them down, and I've been saying this ever since they've been in. They haven't been in a year yet. Just keep watching this space. Meanwhile, Rachel Reeves, what's she up to? Oh, yes, she's been taking some more freebies. She's been to the theatre again to see what can only be described as one of the worst plays that you could ever wish to watch. It's apparently a slightly unusual and jarring look at the life and works of Aneurin Bevan, the man who created the NHS. I can't wait. Get me 10 seats in the stalls. Thanks very much indeed. You see you in the bar. Meanwhile, Labour are claiming that there's no war on motorists. This despite the fact that they've put tariffs on tolls on tunnels, despite the fact that they've put in new lead zones into all sorts of places in the country, despite the fact that parking fines have gone up, speeding fines have gone up, 20-mile-an-hour zones, low traffic neighbourhoods. No, we love the motorists, we do. We're going to give you all sorts of tax breaks. And of course, meanwhile, Migrant of the Day will be awarded once again. Today, we've got a great contender, a man who can't be deported from this country because why? He's got too many Facebook friends. Haven't we all, darling? Now, also the markets are all over the place. They're up, they're down, they're going sideways, they're going underneath each other. Nobody knows what's going on. Watch this space. There was an amazing Trump cabinet meeting yesterday, which was televised. He allowed all the press to come in as he went round the table asking every single person in the cabinet how they were doing. That was pretty amazing. And, of course, the one big story that I haven't mentioned, Prince Harry, who spent most of this week in a British court telling us all how his life is in danger thanks to him admitting to killing members of the Taliban by his own hand, by his own admission. He decided that he needs so much protection that the best place he should go to is a war zone. That's right, he went to Ukraine. Didn't tell Buckingham Palace, didn't tell anybody in his family, just decided to up sticks and go. Well, what can I tell you? We'll be talking about that, plus everything else, and plus it's Gaff-Prone Friday, so we'll even have a few laughs thrown in as well. 0344 499 1000. This is the home of common sense. It's the only place to be, ladies and gentlemen, for the next 4 hours. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Oh, I haven't even mentioned Birmingham yet, where people are now beginning to start setting fire to their own rubbish, because that's the only way to get rid of it. I don't know where to start. Emma Wolf, very good morning to you.
Morning.
I mean, I feel like I should just get up and go home now. I mean, that's the news. That's it. We've done it all now. I mean, there are a few other bits and pieces.
If you'd said sort of 5 years ago that would be the news, I would think you were on a different planet. I'd be saying, well, what were you talking about? The rats the size of cats? And what's Harry doing here? And what's he doing there? And what's Trump doing? And why is Trump in office? I mean, it's madness. What is Starmer doing in office?
Yeah, absolutely right.
I think that would be the big question.
And how much longer can he last? I mean, we haven't even mentioned either yet.
Can we have a daily prayer that it can't last much longer?
We can have a daily prayer, but I don't know if you have to face Mecca for that. I'm not sure. Break and take is what it says on the front page of the Sun this morning. They've got an amazing story as well. This is about the wholesale shoplifting that's going on in Greggs outlets up and down the country. I mean, you see it on a regular basis, don't you? Where people just walk in and walk out with a load of stuff and nobody stops them.
Absolutely brazen. This isn't about weighing your aubergine as a banana or whatever people do at the self-checkout. This is people literally walking in. This is what the Sun investigation is about. Clearing the shelves, just scooping things up. Couple of drinks, couple of bags of cookies, sandwiches, whatever they fancy, and in front of staff who are understandably not up for challenging them.
Well, the thing is they're behind a counter as well, so and a lot of these goods, as you walk into Greggs, or either on the left or the right, they just take them from the frozen...
Just take them and walk out.
The fridge and just walk out.
Some of them
Brighton, Leeds, Bristol, Nottingham, Southampton, London.
Everywhere.
55,000 thefts every day.
And it's absolutely in the open. And the staff who are around, I mean, some of these Greggs apparently do have security guards on the door. But the staff who are around say, well, it's not worth our while to challenge someone who's desperate enough to steal a bag of cookies or whatever. We're not going to... Why would they put themselves at risk?
See, I don't think they're even doing it because they're desperate. I think they're doing it just because they can. In the same way that I'm sure... I know you travel by bicycle around London, but I mean, whenever I'm on the tube, you see these young kids going through the barriers without paying.
Or jumping over them. Or
jumping over them, or just, what they call tailgating. So that 2 or 3 of them go at the same time. Nobody's stopping them. Again, the tube staff don't care because it's probably not worth their trouble to get involved, and I get that. But surely somebody's got to start doing something against this lawlessness, which is just because people can't be bothered.
Well, Mike, wouldn't you kind of think of the words police? I mean, in the olden days, I know it's just a bag of cookies or a sandwich, but in the olden days, that's what the police did. It was called law and order, and the shop would have held the person and called the police. The point is, we've got to such a breakdown now that the police wouldn't attend for shoplifting. Therefore, people do it. I don't blame the staff at all. I wouldn't challenge someone if they were potentially going to pull out a knife.
Well, it's not worth getting stabbed for, is it?
Exactly.
And it's not your company. You are employed by the company, probably not paid an awful lot of money.
You're not going to be paid any more for apprehending someone.
It may even be that Greggs tell their staff not to do it because they don't want to have the problem of a lawsuit because somebody gets stabbed to death.
Exactly. And even in our local Tesco, I've spoken to the security guard. He says, well, I'm not going to challenge someone who comes in and takes half a fridge full of beer.
Right. So what's he actually doing then?
Well, what's he doing? He's not going to get a bonus for... He's there just to keep...
Yeah, but if he's not stopping people stealing, why is he a security guard?
Well...
Why have they got him? What's he there for?
Good question, but is he paid enough to risk his life to be stabbed out on the street? The police won't attend if you call them. It's a shoplifting
But they might
incident.
as well save themselves all the money and not have a security guard at all.
Well, OK, quite, but we might as well have a proper police force.
I mean, we've got pictures coming into us all the time here. We've got one we're going to be looking at after 7 o'clock, which shows that, lawless Britain is not just in the shops, it's on the streets. People are walking around carrying weapons in broad daylight, fighting each other in broad daylight. It's absolutely staggering.
But I also think there's a level of aggression and violence which I've never experienced before. The other day, I cycled past a driver and I said, oh, do you mind indicating when you turn? And she pulled down her window and just started yelling foul, and I had my little boy on the back. Started yelling in the most appalling language. I think that people go from 0 to 100 degrees of anger and rage and violence within a second. I don't know what is the matter with this country.
I know there is definitely something that's changed over the past even I said 5 years the other day. I think it might be even just over the last 2 or 3.
Over the last 3 years, yes.
It's less than 5 years that suddenly the country, certainly parts of London anyway, have become completely and utterly
antisocial. Massively
in every single way. And we know as well from what we've seen in Birmingham, because we've also had lots of people sending us in, pictures from their neighbourhoods, not just in Birmingham, but all over the country. Fly tipping everywhere. People just chucking rubbish in the streets. There's no. But Mike,
doesn't this all come down to the fact that there is no law and order? The police don't bother to attend any of this because guess what? They're sitting in their offices scrolling through hurty Facebook posts. They're not doing their job. They're not out on the streets.
Right.
So, of course, anything goes.
Exactly right. And if you've got 6 police officers turning up because you've written something to your school as a parent...
Well, guess what? There's going to be no resources for
There's no resources
crime.
And only yesterday, Keir Starmer was trying to tell us all that he's going to put more police on the beat when it's busy and it's high crime levels at the weekends. Well, Forget about the weekends, matey. It's all the time. It's 24/7. You better get some more police out there, and you better hire some white police officers, because this country is a majority white nation still.
Don't be racist. And if you're going to
start, and if you're going to start saying you're not going to hire any white people, then you're already cutting off 85% of the population.
Of course you are.
Which is pretty stupid, in my view. And they're also, I mean, let's talk about Yvette Cooper. She doesn't want to intervene because it's they've said this a lot lately. It's an operational police matter. When that Hertfordshire police story broke about the family getting visited by the 6 police officers, that was an operational police matter. Yvette Cooper didn't want to comment. Well, it's time they started commenting. It's time the Home Secretary started doing her job. And apart from stopping the illegal asylum seekers coming here all the time, illegal migrants, it's time she started putting police on the beat and taking responsibility for the crime in this country.
She's the Home Secretary. Yeah. That is literally her. That is her responsibility.
Yeah.
And she's not doing that, and she's not stopping the gang. She's not securing our borders in any way.
Yeah.
This is absolutely ludicrous. This is West Yorkshire police force.
Yeah, we broke the story yesterday.
Temporary block on hiring white British recruits.
Yeah.
That's, I mean...
There can be no excuse for it. It is completely and utterly illegal, apart from anything else. If you tried to do it the other way around and said, you know, only white people can be recruited, there would be you'd have lawyers all over you like a ton of bricks. The Shadow Home Secretary said it's disgraceful policy. People should be treated equally and given equal opportunities. To reject or delay applications just because of someone's skin colour is morally wrong. But she's refusing to do anything about it. She said lots of organisations do encourage more applications from underrepresented groups. But you know, so she's not going to make them change the policy.
She's calling this basically positive discrimination. Yeah. That is absolutely ridiculous. This is anti-white bias.
It shows
Simple as that.
Shows you where these bozos in Labour are coming from. You know, the same goes for the grooming gang story. You know, which is about to, I think, create a massive problem for the Labour government, because they've made a big mistake here, because the entire nation wants to see a proper investigation which has got proper judicial powers to basically command people to appear and to command them to tell the truth under oath.
Well, let's see if it's as big as you predict. I hope so.
Yeah.
And I think people feel the anger.
Let's have a look what old stuttering Starmer's got to say about it.
Of course, I accept the argument that there should be wider inquiries. There have been a number of inquiries. We've had hundreds of recommendations. We've had a national inquiry with 22 recommendations. My strong belief is we've got to implement those recommendations. At the moment, and under the last government, they just stacked up and sat on a shelf. So they need to be implemented. We're now implementing the recommendations from the national inquiry. 17 of them we're taking forward. Of course, if there's further local inquiries that are needed, then we put some funding behind that, and they should happen. But I don't think that simply saying we need more inquiries when we haven't even acted on the ones that we've had is necessarily the only way forward.
See, the trouble with all his disingenuous mumblings there is that there isn't anything going on. They haven't done anything. Maggie Oliver's been tweeting about this all week, saying that she's supposed to be having meetings with Andy Burnham. There's supposed to have been action going on around the Greater Manchester area. Nothing's happened. Nothing's been done. In fact, I think the KC, who was due to be the man investigating all of it, had to ring somebody up in the Home Office and say, am I being stood down because nobody's been in touch with me?
It is absolutely scandalous, isn't it? I mean, someone was saying, rather than showing adolescents across every blooming secondary school, we need to be showing 3 girls. And Maggie Oliver, who's been really, I mean, you've had her on and she's been absolutely amazing on this. So vocal and so important in getting this story, keeping it on the front pages. But no, it's absolutely... And you can see Starmer squirming there.
Of course he is, because he hates the idea that he's been put on the spot.
Put some funding behind it. This is a scandal.
We know that it's a big... Well, people are calling it the biggest scandal in British politics, modern British politics for probably this entire century, right? Even Dan Hodges yesterday is calling it a cover-up, and he's not exactly an enemy of the Labour Party.
No.
Robbie Moore MP, who's coming on later on, the Tory MP, has put this out yesterday. The truth is out about Labour's rape gang strategy. It has been a complete sham from the start. The independent KC Labour hired to develop local inquiries has been quietly dropped, so we know that. The funding they pledged to councils for local inquiries is being secretly watered down, and the worst hit areas in the north won't even qualify for an inquiry. The government must immediately change course, and Maggie Oliver has been absolutely in support of him, and she's called the government's empty words and promises while the international spotlight shines on this neglect, and then takes, basically she says as soon as the spotlight's off it, they'll just quietly try and hide it under the carpet.
Of course, and it's because it's northern towns, and if it was the other way around, what do you think would be, you know, this would be a national scandal. So.
Oh, I know. Absolutely ridiculous. We're going to talk about Prince Harry when we come back. He's gone off to Ukraine, despite the fact that he fears that his life might be in danger. Well, maybe stop going to war zones. That might be a start. West Yorkshire police are absolutely hopeless, says Bill in Cheshire. If you're a victim of a crime, they're about as much use as a chocolate fire guard. And Lisa says, morning, Mike, it's cost of living. Too many people are just surviving. People are more aggressive. Causation, pandemic, plus mass migration. Yeah, well, I get that people are more upset and people are more, you know, under pressure. But there's no reason that means that you should therefore steal things. And there's no reason that means that you should therefore be so horrible and nasty and violent to other people in your community. I don't think that's at all justifiable. I can understand that people can get upset, and I can understand that life is difficult for people, but, you know, you don't go around shouting and screaming at people just because of that. Louise from Suffolk, morning, Mike. We see all these barristers are successfully stopping criminals being deported. Where were they when law-abiding citizens were being locked up for years for hurty tweets? Well, it's a very good question. They're all lefties, I'm afraid, aren't they?
Very good point, exactly.
Unfortunately. We'll be back with more on Morning Glory. Keep your voice notes coming in, 0344 499 1000. It's Friday.
This is the sense of passport pilfering by the Home Office, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
When you look at a family of, you know, two adults, 2 children, it's now a passport's going to be around £330.
Yeah.
And that's a huge amount of money to add on to the costs, increasing costs that we've got for holidays, VATs that are being increased for people across the country, and a burden that is not necessary if we actually reduce those people coming to this country across the channel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 21 minutes past 6. It's all happening, ladies and gentlemen. We've got loads to talk about. Not only is the Labour Party in the deep, dark stuff, and it's all very horrible for them, but we're going to be talking about what's going on in Birmingham, where residents are burning their rubbish. Burning them, you could call it, I suppose. I've just thought of that one. Also, we're going to be talking about a horrifying sewage spill that lasted an entire year. A strange story about some salmon who apparently are being so affected by anxiety drugs that people are taking and therefore putting into the water system that they're now taking more risks. I don't know what that means, Emma, but salmon taking risks could be a funny story. Migrant of the Day will do as well. But since it's Friday, let's start off with a gaffe from Ian Collins.
Oh yeah, let me go to my Starmer's doing well file. Hang on 1 second, just a minute. It's just under. Where is it? There it is. I've got it here. Let's have a little look. Somewhere.
Nothing there? Yeah.
No, nothing.
What I love is you managed to reach into your trash can spontaneously and not make the liquor bottles in there clink together to reveal what's going on.
I took a risk there. I took a hygiene risk. All manner of things could have been in there. One bottle of gin is easy to cover. It's the two. I know you're a 2-bottle man by this time of the day. Always two. So. Always two. Yeah, it could have had Mike Graham's toenails in there because he likes. He goes for an 8 a.m. clipping, you see, but.
Yeah, that's the fake Michael Graham there, the one from America. The real one is here every morning, 6 to 10. Don't worry about it.
The one and only.
Yeah, tell me about Prince Harry. He's on the front page, he's looking very earnest, wearing a jacket from Invictus Games.
Invictus Fleece.
Yeah, fresh from his latest court battle with the government.
So terrified of his security risk in this country that not only does he keep visiting this country and wasting resources at his high court, endless... well, addiction, I would call it, addiction to suing us.
Yes.
And whining about being a victim. But then, so at risk is he that he jetted off to Ukraine secretly, without mentioning the fact to any members of the royal family, apparently. To go and meet...
it says the Foreign Office declined to comment on whether it was made aware of the Duke's trip beforehand, which would lead you to believe perhaps they were not.
So the Foreign Office were not aware, and the royal family seems were not aware. To meet wounded war victims.
Yeah. I mean,
to show his compassion, which is great.
I'd rather see him doing this than being in court all the time.
Absolutely, Mike. It's just the juxtaposition of this with his victimhood status thing, swanning around in and out of the High Court, saying his family can't even come to this country. I don't think Meghan wants to come to this country.
Well, we certainly don't want her to come.
We don't want... Absolutely
that would be my
not.
position. Thank you very much indeed.
Grandstanding around here, and then off to do... He cannot resist a bit of virtue signalling. It's great. No, you're right. It is great that he's going out to Ukraine. He's actually the most senior member of the royal family. Is he still a member? Is he?
Well, he's not, you see. That's the point. And apparently, Buckingham Palace did not need to be made aware of the trip in advance because he's no longer a working royal. So, I mean, they're saying that he's the most senior member of the royal family, but he's not really a member
of it. The Duchess of Edinburgh visited last year. We know that. It always just feels a little bit double-edged, I think. I mean, what does this say?
That's the problem.
You know, what is he saying to Trump about this? Is he having another dig at Trump after the Zelensky showdown? You know, is he having a dig at the royal family?
Yeah.
It never feels quite genuine, actually, or authentic.
The trouble is, it's all about him, isn't it?
It's all about
him.
It
feels. As much as, you know, he may be a very caring individual, you know, people will say he fought for his country, we should be nicer to him, maybe so. We should give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's very difficult given the way he comports himself, because it's always about what are Harry and Meghan saying about it.
And this endless thing about we want our privacy and then literally selling their lifestyles. Right. And that may be more Meghan than Harry, but that's not the point.
And these are not British troops he's visiting, these are Ukrainian troops he's visiting, right?
Exactly. And actually Prince William does a lot of this kind of thing. I mean, he's often out selling the big issue and things. You don't always get the sort of barrage of photographs and things.
No.
So, you know, I think Harry does make it very clear what he's doing, and he does make sure that the press get good coverage and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's often sort of sources saying that he wants to do these things, but with a Netflix crew in tow.
And by coincidence, and this may well be completely and utterly unrelated, Prince William, his brother, is on the front page of the Mirror.
You
have to wonder, because there was a lot of social media interaction over the course of the last couple of days, because William went to the Aston Villa game. They were playing Paris Saint-Germain this week. And he was interviewed by TalkSport's very own Ali McCoist and Rio Ferdinand, and he was brilliant. You know, he sounded like he knew. He was talking about, I mean, unfortunately they got slaughtered, by the way, PSG, so his prediction that he was hoping for a high press and a good game didn't quite work out. However, millions of people thought, this is a guy who should actually be a professional pundit.
And everybody wants, that's what I love, Mike. Everybody wants more of him. He's not just one. We've all sat next to the boar in the pub who starts talking and they talk the talk and they talk about pressing high or whatever it is. But actually Prince William seemed to know what he was talking about. And people say he should be doing this. And you just know he loves his football. You just know he would love to do more of it. But how can you have the king, the future king, as like a football commentator.
And what
it's
was
not going to work.
Was Andrew Neil made an observation again on social media that his voice now has kind of become much less posh than it would have been otherwise in earlier incarnations of the royal family. Even Charles and Diana, you know, and Camilla, you know, they speak with that very much plummy voice, very plummy accent.
Catherine does as well.
Yeah, whereas William actually sounds a bit more like he's speaking like a normal British person.
Yeah, but he does that thing that you and I do probably when we're talking to the plumber. You dial it down a bit. He's obviously done that to be on.
Yeah, maybe he's gone into sort of football speak. But yeah, I mean, Rio Ferdinand said to him, "Well, I hope you don't get into this business because you might put us all out of business."
Exactly.
Because you're actually rather good at it. The other story that's going around, and this takes me back to the days of Diana, I must say, because Parry Match has printed pictures of the Princess of Wales on a private skiing holiday with her 3 children and her husband. And this used to go on all the time.
Yeah, and, you know, especially Parry Match. It's that kind of era.
Parry Match and Stern and the German
very
magazines
much Princess Diana
like
era.
They went after this stuff all the time. No matter how many times the British press agreed not to publish stuff, other foreign publications would always do it anyway. Yeah. And it becomes a real problem, you know.
So this was apparently a ski holiday, a secret skiing holiday of the Prince and Princess of Wales with their 3 children I think they were in Courchevel. Yeah. I didn't know about this. When was this? Is this now?
It must have been early part of this year, I guess.
Part of this year.
You know, skiing season and all that, because, I mean, it's not, I mean, you can probably just about still ski, but it's more or less over now. Yeah, I mean, no suggestion yet that any formal complaint has been made, but the royal couple have always been quite sort of strenuously objecting.
I think on holiday with their children, they're very, very keen to keep that private because they do give the press full coverage when they go and do a formal engagement.
And I guess, you know, with also the background of the Princess of Wales, you know, being ill and being treated for cancer for such a long time, when she wasn't seen for such a long time, you know, there'll be an even bigger thirst for seeing pictures of her.
Of course.
And they're quite relentless, some of these people. I mean, let's not forget the paparazzi that were chasing Diana in the tunnel in Paris all those years ago were all working for foreign magazines. They weren't working for Fleet Street, who never published any of those pictures.
And there was a big court case about the Princess of Wales pictured topless, I think, at one point when she and William were either dating or in the very early years of their marriage, and that was definitely a foreign publication.
Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Andy on Lawless Britain.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Emma. Andy in Southsea. Yeah, I'm a delivery driver, and I see people walking in and out of Greggs all the time. Where people are queuing up, they just walk in, grab whatever they want from the sarnies on the side and just walk out. Not only that, the amount of people I see walking out of places like the Co-op with baskets full of stuff like Bold washing up liquid, you know, all the expensive gear, basket full to the brim, and they just runs out with it. There's a particular guy who goes in there and he's always got a high-vis jacket on, so he looks like he's like a worker, you know. That's his camouflage, I suppose. Yeah, and he just walks in, walks out with like 50, 100 quid worth of gear. No one's there to challenge him, and to be fair, why would they? Why put yourself at risk? Yeah, it's a crazy world. Keep up the good work, Mike.
I think that's the thing. I think, I mean, Andy, you're absolutely right, but that's the thing, isn't it? People feel angry at seeing other people getting away with it. Well, it's not really about cost of living when you're nicking.
Really not.
I mean, when you see someone taking baby food or nappies, you could say, OK, well, it's cost of living. But when people are just helping themselves to alcohol,
I don't think so.
to expensive washing up liquid, whatever, things they can just resell.
No, I think the most likely cause of people taking baby food and nappies is to resell it, because that's what an awful lot of them are doing. And people will be able to tell me, I'm sure, you could sit in a pub and somebody walks in, you know, they used to walk in with like a load of steak that they'd nicked from Marks and Spencer's or something. But, I mean, according to this piece in The Sun, pages 4 and 5, shameless and lawless, Britain is facing a shoplifting epidemic, a record 55,000 incidents a day. In 2024, it cost retailers £2.2 billion. So, I mean, in the end, we all end up paying more. And there is a sense in this country where, and I get this from a lot of people, that the people who are playing by the rules, you're paying your council tax, you're paying your income tax, you're paying your VAT, you're doing all the right things, you're paying for all the stuff that you want to buy in a shop, and you're the one that's getting punished.
Exactly.
Basically.
And that other people are getting away with it.
Yeah.
And I'd be really interested to know just the sort of profile of the people who are, I don't know whether there is any kind of general rule, whether it's gone up in line with immigration or anything like that. Looking at the photos in The Sun, it seems to be people of all races, colours, genders. It's not a kind of...
It's completely gender-free and race-free. It's a lot of young people, though, is what I would say, who don't seem to feel that they owe anything to society.
Yeah, but I think it does come back to the really boring point that there are no consequences.
Right.
If you're not going to be stopped, if you're not going to be arrested or charged or warned or anything, you just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and no, you and I wouldn't, but...
Yeah, we wouldn't do it.
What's to stop you?
To stop you? Here's one from James who says, a security guard who doesn't think it's worth his while challenging a shoplifter just sums up how people view work these days. Turning up and not performing any of your basic duties and still expecting to be paid is showcased daily by the people supposedly in charge of this country. They are setting the terrible example that it doesn't matter what you do, you won't be held to account. I think that's a good point as well.
Yeah, I agree, but if you're being paid £10 or £15 an hour, why would you challenge someone who's run in, grabbed a load of stuff and runs out? There are people waiting outside to help them.
But if you're a security guard, what do you think your job is?
Well, of course that is the job.
You know?
Well, they might say
to stop people, isn't it to stop people stealing from the shop?
Or to keep the premises safe.
Yeah. But, you know, unfortunately, that's not what's going on. One from Steve who says, Mike, every time I see and hear the empty and meaningless lies of Starmer on TV, I feel a mix of hatred and despair, something that no one else has ever provoked in my whole life.
Yeah.
I imagine you will be absolutely and utterly in agreement with the rest of the entire country. Scottish says, Mike, and one word for this government, disgusting. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Everything in that one message there. Have a good weekend. This government's disgusting. It's true. It's 6:32. Coming up, we'll talk about the migrant of the day. This is Morning Glory.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, and this, of course, is the only place to be for the commonsensical approach to life, because we are the ones that tell you exactly how things are going wrong in this country. We occasionally come up with the odd solution as well. We've got plenty of advice for the government if they would only listen to us. You can sometimes know that they do, because they do sometimes change their minds. But let's talk some more about the more scandal for Rachel Reeves. Emma Wolf is here. She's taking yet another freebie.
She doesn't get it,
does she?
What's wrong with her? She literally doesn't get it. Well, she has a very weird taste in entertainment as well. She was at Sabrina Carpenter concert.
Yeah.
Now she's been at this thing called, is it called Nye?
Well, it's an appreciation
surreal
of...
and spectacular. It's one of these avant-garde theatrical
something
adaptations.
to do with Nye Bevan, Nyron Bevan, the man who invented the NHS. Well, he actually didn't invent the NHS. He made the NHS happen, and he's very much lauded and praised for that. But it sounds dull as ditchwater, doesn't it?
No, it sounds painful. It really does.
Dreadful.
These kind of avant-garde theatrical performances where people, I don't know, in flesh-coloured tights leap around the stage with no music.
Yes.
Yeah, surreal and spectacular journey through the life of Nyron Bevan.
Let's imagine life in South Wales in the 1930s through the vision of dance.
I can't.
Can you imagine?
I can't.
And
I literally couldn't go in.
She's even taken her children to it.
So, well, she took 3 family members. Is she going to claim this was some kind of political research project because it's Nye Bevan?
Right.
I don't know.
Well, she's said in the past, hasn't she, that she's not now going to take any more freebies. This goes back a while, I think, because it's only just been declared.
Yeah, but she is freebie queen. She's been really filling her pockets, hasn't she?
She has. And, of course, this would be something that now she would not do, apparently, according to her. But, again, it's hundreds of pounds worth of free stuff. She says she'd only now take if it's relevant to her job. Well, why is she taking her husband along, and why is she taking her family along?
I wouldn't expect someone to go to the theatre on their own, necessarily.
Well, I would expect... No, I would, because if you're being invited by somebody and it's about business, you know, and you're going to sit in a box... It's hospitality. Or you're going to go with a crowd of people who you're going to discuss government business with. You don't say, you know, I don't turn up here, you know, with my children.
No.
Or, you know, various different wives or anything. You just, you know, you go to work. If you're working... You're working. You don't take everybody with you.
To be fair, you did bring a couple of wives yesterday.
No, that's not true.
No, it's not true.
No.
No, I think this is very, very odd, and I'd love to know what else she has been, what else Reid
Well, you know
been,
there's going to be more of this to
what
come
other
out.
freebies she's been accepting.
You know it. Absolutely right. What about this? Labour have been claiming that there's no war on motorists, right? This is their latest ridiculous claim, latest lie, you might want to call it, because Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said in a speech yesterday, no serious person thinks tradesmen are being asked to swap their van for a bus. She said she's focused on real problems, not invented ones. But unfortunately, to working families forking out more than ever to stay on the road, the war is all too real. Since entering number 10, Labour has backed controversial 20-mile-an-hour zones, rolled out more low-traffic neighbourhoods, hiked car tax bills across the board, and put clean electric vehicles given a £190 annual charge. Not to add insult to injury, you can now get your car charged for a luxury tax if it costs more than 40,000 quid. So they're taxing the hell out of motorists.
Of course they are. Look, talk to any cabbie, talk to any driver. I mean, we're talking about London, but across the country, how hard they have made it. And there's another story in the papers about the fact that there are primary schools and nurseries where the low-traffic neighbourhoods that are imposed outside schools and things like that are increasing the pollution for young children, which is a killer, by the way. The whole point of low-traffic neighbourhoods, it was meant to reduce emissions. It was meant to reduce pollution. Absolute nonsense. It's increased it because you have cars, and I'm a cyclist, and I understand this stuff. You have cars endlessly circling around the same roads, trying to get through. They can't get through the regular roads where they would have normally passed through and not polluted. So you now have drivers circling around at 20 miles an hour, basically, you know, increasing air pollution for young children.
Well, I've got some news for
it's very, very bad.
The burghers of London, who seem to think that, you know, air does not move from one portion of the city to another. You know, you can't actually make one particular neighbourhood any cleaner than another because air travels through, guess what? The air.
No, but you're increasing traffic as well. You're increasing congestion.
You don't have to tell me, darling. I sit in it every day.
I know you do. I know you do. But that is what Sadiq Khan cannot get through his skull, is that low-traffic neighbourhoods are not a good idea.
No, of course
they're not greener.
No.
They make some roads no-goes and everything else. I mean, I live in one of these low-traffic, and all you see is cars circling around trying to get through.
Right. Well, the other place you have a problem with is various places. I ended up coming through a sort of circuitous route to get through London last Sunday when I was coming back from Sussex because there was so much congestion. And these ridiculous poles that they put together to narrow the road, which means that if you're a delivery driver, you can't even get down there. So if you're trying to get something delivered to your house, you can't get it delivered to your house because the guy can't get to you. And it's absolute madness.
And that's without even starting on the roadworks hell, which means that often 2 lanes will be cut down to 1, and you have these endless traffic.
Well, a lot of it's down to the cycle lanes.
But there's nothing happening. There's nothing. Yeah,
and the cycle lanes are busy during rush hour, but not for the rest of the day. Why don't they have a flexible system, which would be far more sensible? One story that we're going to do just now, because it's a terribly sad story, it's over in America. It was a helicopter crash that happened yesterday. Agustin Escobar, president of the Spanish branch of Siemens, and his wife and 3 children went off on a helicopter ride around New York City, as a lot of people do. And you can see the footage here. And something catastrophic happened to the helicopter while it was flying over the Hudson River, and one of the blades of the helicopter just came off and it plunged into the ground, into the Hudson River, and unfortunately all 6 people were killed. It's a terribly tragic story because many people will be listening to this and watching this, having done exactly this when they went to New York.
Exactly.
You take a helicopter ride. And
I mean, it's an amazing experience to do that, but helicopters, unfortunately, when something like that goes wrong...
there's nowhere to go, is there? It's a terribly sad story. The 3 kids, all quite young, and you know, the head of the Spanish branch of Siemens, his wife, plus the pilot, all perished, I'm afraid. So we'll bring you news on that and updates on that as to what they can say what happened to that helicopter and how old it was, or how badly, you know, mechanically it was you know, maintained, because that will obviously be the focus of an investigation. Let's talk about the migrant of the day, which is one of my favourite features on this show. Today it's an Iranian. We don't know if I think we've got his name. He's known as BS, funnily enough.
Yes, that did make me chuckle.
But we can't get... I mean, the thing that annoys me is that we can't get these people's names because apparently they're protected by some ridiculous human rights law.
Of course they're protected.
But a judge who's known as Rebecca Chapman had said that the previous judge who said he could be deported had not actually taken account of the number of Facebook friends that this particular Iranian called BS has. I'd say the whole story is BS, to be honest. But basically, he's now allowed to stay in this country because he has plenty of Facebook friends. What?
And on Facebook, he is frequently airing, according to the Mail, anti-government sentiment.
Oh, yeah.
And so apparently this means that the authorities in Tehran will detain and torture him on his return. So he's choosing to be posting on Facebook inflammatory tweets about Tehran, which means he's at risk if he goes back. So he's not fleeing...
He sounds like the Prince Harry of Facebook.
Well, exactly.
So he's deliberately kind of, saying that he's... Uber victim, but he's already putting himself in the firing line and then complaining that he's in the firing line.
Absolutely ludicrous. So if you're really, really popular, if you've got loads of followers, loads of friends, does that make you immune to... You can commit any crime you like?
Yeah.
Or does that only...
Well, it means you can't be deported for the crimes. I mean, some of these people have been punished for the crimes that they've committed here. It's just that we now want them to be deported. We don't want them here. I mean, Donald Trump yesterday gave an amazing open cabinet meeting where he had all sorts of members of the press there filming it all for about an hour and a half, and he had all the various different cabinet ministers in charge of immigration, in charge of intelligence, in charge of the FBI, and they were all talking very openly. And he said, if people want to come to this country and commit crime, we don't want them. It's a perfectly straightforward thing, and if you do that, we're going to kick you out of the country.
So refreshing to hear.
And if you come to this country and you want to work here, but you've come illegally, we will give you a means of leaving and applying how to come back legally. Yeah. And that way we can all be, getting along with each other. But if you've come to this country illegally and you are not willing to take those sort of, recommendations, if you like, then you'll never be able to come back.
Make America great again. He's literally he's saying he's doing what he said.
He really is.
And he's being really, really clear and really honest. Yeah. And he's putting America first, I'm afraid.
Meanwhile, on the shoe is on the other foot when it comes to France. They're now giving life jackets to migrants who are deciding to get into, what are illegal boats to come here illegally. They're being helped by the French nation.
So the French are giving them life jackets because apparently the people smugglers don't provide them with life jackets, surprisingly. Yeah. And then they escort them until they're safe into British waters, until they've been picked up by our lifeguards, by our coast guards. Then they take the jackets back to reuse for more migrants to send over here.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's an absolute joke.
It really is.
And meanwhile, Yvette Cooper's doing nothing.
No. Well,
and Starmer is saying that he's smashing the gangs and not doing anything, stopping the boats.
Yeah, they're not stopping the boats. In fact, they're encouraging more people. And with this lovely weather, it's going to be 20-odd degrees today, and it's going to be very nice on the Channel. There'll probably be another couple of thousand will arrive over the weekend. We've already got, I think, up to nearly 7,000 now since the beginning of the year. So, I mean, this could be a record year for crossing.
There is simply no deterrent. I think we've already broken records when you do year on year. Yeah. Record numbers in the first few months of this year, and as you say, more people will be coming in the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely right. Mike, Phil in commentary says, no, it's not shoplifting, Mike. Wash your mouth out. It's alternative shopping. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Yeah, I'm not surprised. That'll be the next thing they come out with.
Exactly.
Brian in Ruislip says, reminds me of the 70s when I worked for Woolworths and the police attended the Woking branch for a person stealing one packet of chewing gum. Yeah.
I worked for Woolworths as well. I had a weekend job at Woolworths. It was a fantastic shop. The demise of Woolworths was the beginning, I think, the beginning of the death of the high street.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Yeah, and you're right. The police would attend when there was shoplifting.
Yeah.
We would call the police. Someone would be taken in. They would be taken up to the staff room. They would be sat down and told to wait for the police to come. And even if the police just gave someone a warning, like a young person, they would give them a warning, and usually that was enough to shock someone not to shoplift again.
Because they would be recognised as well in the shop and in the street and all of that.
Yeah, and they would take a photo of them and they would write down their name, and then people were shocked and they didn't shoplift again.
Yeah. Aaron from London, security guards and police have no powers anymore. They know if they try to restrain or take down a thief, they will be sacked and sued. The UK is crying out for a return to basic law and order. Well, how many times do you now see these ridiculous scenes where you've got about 4 police officers on one guy because they've got these ridiculous rules about how you're not allowed to restrain them. So instead of chucking them on the ground and putting your knee on them, they're now sort of holding them so that they don't escape. So and 4 of them are sort of holding onto each of their arms and each of their legs. And it looks mad. It looks like they're in some game of Twister.
Exactly.
It's like, no, put them on the ground, put your hands behind your back, handcuff them, pick them up, stick them in the back of a van, drive them to the police station.
Exactly. Well, in the old days, you'd have a burly police cop who'd get him down on the floor and then arrest him and put him in the, as you say,
but they're all
take
terrified
him to the station.
of the whole, Floyd scenario where they put their knee on him and he dies or something, Morning, Mike. Great show says down in Chepstow. My partner works in retail. They're told to stop shoplifters. She stopped one woman who said she'd come back and stab her. So now she doesn't stop them.
Well, it's not worth your while. You don't want your wife or you don't want yourself to be risked. Well,
surely,
stabbed.
Darren, and I sympathise with your wife, but do you not report that person to the police if you've got them on CCTV?
Yeah, but presumably you feel terrified. I mean, if we worked in a shop, we'd feel terrified we were going to come out at the end of the day and some of their mates would be waiting for us. It's just not worth your while.
It's just impossible. But that's how we get to where we are. I know. Because people don't bother anymore.
Yes, but you're paid to be a retail worker. You're not paid to be a police officer. And presumably Darren's wife doesn't feel that she needs to, that she can.
No, I get that. But somebody needs to sort this situation out.
Well, it's called the police.
It needs to be the police. It needs to be law and order. Let's get a voice note from Richard.
Good morning, Mark. Richard in Corby. I normally have to dip in and out of Morning Glory because of work commitments, but today I'm travelling from Corby to Carlisle, and all week I've been looking forward to being able to listen to the entire show. I can't wait. No, that's great. Thanks, Mike.
Richard, welcome, and I'm so glad, and I hope you don't get held up too much. And if you're driving anywhere near Birmingham, because we had a tip yesterday from a lorry driver who was near the M42, beware, shut the windows and put your, air conditioning thing on the front of the dash, put it to closed internal air only, because otherwise it will smell like you're driving through the Philippines and some kind of horrendous tip where people are scrambling around looking for food. Well, that's what it's like. Apparently people are now burning their own rubbish. It's going to look like a scene from Escape from New York or something, isn't it?
It is appalling. I cycled past a really, really bad load of rubbish in London, and I suddenly thought, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to what Birmingham residents are going through.
I know.
With the rats, I think they're now the size of elephants or woolly mammoths or something.
They are they're
getting
bigger.
Risk. They are attacking people.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I know, it's shocking.
It is appalling.
If you've got little kids in Birmingham, you must be terrified, because if a rat bites your child, you're going to be really, really...
it's very, very unsafe. Also, in the hot weather, the food is rotting. Angela Rayner, to be fair, apparently did pitch up yesterday in Birmingham in her brothel creepers, the shoes that she keeps wearing.
Those ridiculous shoes,
She wore those and turned up and said, please, can everyone just empty the bins? Please. She told the council workers they should really be emptying bins.
Yeah. She wants them all to go back to work. Yeah. I mean, it's a complete mess. It's a typical state of affairs. And also, do you know what I discovered yesterday? There's a strike going on in the NHS in Nottingham because the people who work in a hospital in Nottingham are not happy with their pay. They're not happy with their conditions. They're going to be offered a rebate of money, or going all the way back to 2021. So 4 years worth of money they're going to be getting. This is only the beginning. You talk about the old Labour governments where the unions took over. This is what's happening.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to empty your bin. You're not going to be able to get to a hospital. You're not going to be able to get your bodies buried. It will be just like 1970s, which was an absolute nightmare.
Well, the thing is, I mean, one says that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but actually it could be the next thing.
It's all going on. I mean, same goes for the...
Bodies not being
we're now importing millions and millions of pounds worth of coal from China and Japan because Ed Miliband, the complete and utter net zero maniac, shut down any coal-producing mines in this country.
This is the net zero madness, isn't it? We are importing, as you say, tons and tons and tons of foreign coal to keep our steel, to keep the furnaces running.
Yeah. Because we don't produce it
Because
anymore.
we don't produce the coal because we've shut it all down.
Yeah,
and put people out of work.
Absolutely
and put them on benefits.
Coming up after the break, we're going to be hearing from a remarkable interview that took place yesterday between Peter Cardwell and a barrister by the name of Frank McGuinness, who quite happily and openly admitted that he was working for Hamas.
This is a sense of passport pilfering by the Home Office, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
When you look at a family of, two adults, 2 children, it's now a passport's going to be around £330.
Yeah.
And that's a huge amount of money to add on to the costs, increasing costs that we've got for holidays, VATs that are being increased for people across the country, and a burden that is not necessary if we actually reduce those people coming to this country across the channel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:52. It's gaff-prone Friday, of course, and we'll be playing plenty of gaffs for you. What a melt, says Don in South Wales. Prince Harry's kicking off that he doesn't have enough security when he comes to the UK, but he's happy to visit a war zone in Ukraine. Did he demand that Zelensky supply him with the security detail at the Ukrainian people's expense? Imagine being a Ukrainian asking for help in the war, and the sport brat shows up to boost his own popularity, says Don in South Wales. Well, I mean, that's certainly one view that plenty of people can have. Let's have a look at what happened yesterday here on Talk, because as much as Morning Glory is here from 6 to 10, I should say. Sorry, don't give anybody any ideas. 6 to 10 is fine. After 4 o'clock, we've got Drive with Jeremy Kyle, Monday to Wednesday, and then Peter Cardwell does it, of course, on Thursday and Friday. And yesterday, he spoke to Frank McGuinness, an odious, ghastly individual who calls himself a barrister, calls himself a communist barrister, actually, but he's representing Hamas, who are now trying to have their terror status lifted in the UK. Have a look.
You have told me that you have decided to represent Hamas. They are an unspeakably horrific and dreadful organisation.
Oh,
so yes, I am associating you with them because you've decided to represent them.
Okay, I think you might be hearing from the police. I mean, I don't know, but it sounds like you might. The low point on the Irish side of the Irish Sea is Pat Finucane, of course, right? A British MP stood up in Parliament and said he's just like his clients. Pat Finucane represented members of the Provisional IRA, which is another proscribed organisation. And 3 weeks later, Pat Finucane was, of course, murdered in front of his family by loyalist paramilitaries who we now know had handlers in the British establishment. So you're playing the same game. Don't talk over me.
Let's talk about Hamas. I'll talk over you if you want to. No, excuse me.
You're playing the same game.
I'm not playing any games. I'm not playing any games.
You just put a target on my back.
I'm not putting a target on anybody's back. I am asking you. No, I don't.
You owe me an apology.
No, I don't. I'm asking you why you've decided. Why have you decided to represent Hamas?
Next question.
Am I getting it clear, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you believe that Hamas have a right to use armed force to represent their position?
You keep asking me what I believe, which again is it's not quite as blatant and disgusting as your previous question. But
what's interesting is that
Hamas
said, well, I mean, you're representing these people and you've chosen to do so, so presumably it has something to do with what you believe.
Do you not understand how the legal system works?
Yes, I do, and I understand that you didn't have to take the case. If I were a lawyer and if someone came to me, I would say there's not in a million years would I represent Hamas. They are a disgusting, horrendous, anti-Semitic, dreadful terrorist organisation. That's what I would say. You didn't say that, and I'm very interested as to why.
Because you're trying to make the story about me instead of this important application because you're not a serious journalist, is that right?
Yeah, communist barrister, he calls himself. And Frank with a CK. I don't know why it's spelled Frank with a CK. And with strange headphones. Yeah, I mean, what an odious individual. Try to first of all make out that he knew more than Peter did. Yes. Then when Peter clearly caught him on the hop, he pretended to play the victim and say, well, now you put a target on my back. Yeah. Well, matey, I would say if you're going to operate, if you're going to represent a terrorist organisation in the law courts, you might have put your own target on your back, because terrorist organisations tend not to take very kindly to people who don't do good work for them.
And then starts attacking Peter.
Yeah.
You're not a serious journalist.
Right.
Just answer the question.
Yeah,
He's totally unable to answer the question.
Shocking
put
story.
To him
but we are in this country now
times.
in such a place where people were talking about this yesterday, and people we had conversations about it on the show yesterday as well. That they're trying to use the ECHR to get them to say, by international law standards, Hamas can't be called a terrorist organisation. And if they succeed in that, then they will be able to get funding from the UK. And this is a British law firm, a human rights law firm based in South London, which obviously uses Irish lawyers as well, people who are absolutely and utterly determined to dismantle the British state and to support a terrorist cause. Seems incredible to me. With British funding, it's very, very alarming situation. Isn't it? It really is. And I mean, I know that there are some Jewish groups who are very, very upset about this, and they're looking to see what they can do, because this is going to be put to Yvette Cooper, and it would not surprise anybody, I don't think, if Yvette Cooper said, well, let's let the judges decide. This is an organisation, this is an individual matter. There's nothing to decide. You know, it's not a question whether Hamas are terrorists or not. It's just not a question. I'm sorry. Absolutely incredible stuff. Let's talk about something slightly less fractious, and that is the story on the front page of the Times today about salmon. They say salmon may be getting more reckless, and it could be your anxiety medication that is to blame, because obviously people are taking more and more of this anxiety medication. It's going into the water supply in the normal way, and apparently they've decided that now salmon are taking these drugs, you know, obviously by swimming in the waterways, and they're not as worried as they used to be. I didn't know they were worried. Well, they're not. Yeah, exactly. They're not so vigilant, so they've become quite carefree and reckless, and they start leaping into the danger zones of water. I do think there's a deeper issue here, though, that the increase in medication and in things like contraceptives and all this stuff that people, huge millions of people in this country are taking is, and I don't eat fish, but is getting washed into the water naturally, as you say, is being ingested by fish, as are apparently little plastic, you know, the microplastics, all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of cocaine in the water in London as well. A lot of cocaine, a lot of drugs, a lot of general drugs are going into the fish. You think that would make them more anxious, and people are eating the fish as well. Yeah. And then so the cycle continues. The cycle. It's a weird story, though. I'm still sort of slightly stuck on the idea that salmon used to be more anxious than they are now. I mean, what does an anxious salmon do? Not jump? I think what do they do? Sit there and go, oh, I'd like to jump, but I just don't think I can today. Maybe they were just more vigilant about not leaping, not putting themselves at risk, and now they're reckless. Yes, reckless salmon. Reckless salmon. Wild salmon or reckless salmon? I don't know if they taste any different if they're reckless. Yeah. Final one on Gen Z, I suppose. Apparently, if you're talking to somebody from Gen Z in person, they can only last 2 minutes before they put the phone in front of them and start looking at it. I'm amazed it's that long. You know? I mean, if you can even get their attention. I don't know what Z we're up to now, what X, Y, Z, Zia. This is absolutely ridiculous. In terms of people's concentration, apparently Gen Z, you can only have a conversation with them for up to 2 minutes. You know how they can't turn up to job interviews? To be honest, 2 minutes is good enough for me. 2 minutes is long enough, I'm finished by then. Yeah. You know, I've got nothing else to say. But it's fine. No important conversations ever happen because they can't talk to people face to face. They can only text, can't they? Right. They can't go to They're usually not even in front of you because they're working from home. Well, it also makes them anxious. Yeah. Or depressed. Like the salmon. Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. Good to see you. Emma Wolf, thank you very much indeed. Have a great weekend. It's going to be very hot this weekend, so don't be nervous. Don't get anxious. Have some salmon. Why not? Carolyn Shuren by Sea says, morning, Mike and Emma. Why on earth are these invaders allowed any appeals? We make the law, which should not include wasting more of our time and money on these unwanted people. This nonsense must be stopped immediately. We're sick and tired of being played for fools. Have a nice day. I still got no bumper sticker. Listen, if you haven't got one now, you'll have to wait for the next batch, which will be coming soon. This is Morning Glory.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7. The sun is up, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a hot one today. We're going to be reaching temperatures of over 20, 22, maybe 24 degrees. So it's definitely get your shorts out weather. I should put mine on yesterday in the afternoon when I went out to do a couple of errands. And it was a thing of great enjoyment, I have to say. So dust them off, dust them down, get your legs out, get your arms out, get yourself some walking shoes and just go and have a good time, because this government ain't going to do anything for you, and you shouldn't be expecting them to, because quite frankly, they are making a complete Horlicks of absolutely everything. Front page of the Sun today has got Bacon Take Greggs under attack, a shoplifting crisis, right, where dozens of people, the Sun have witnessed walking into shops all over the place, from Brighton down to London. We've got people in Nottingham, in Southampton, in Bristol, in Leeds, thieves stripping the shelves, literally walking in and walking straight out again. Nobody's stopping them because they have no fear of being arrested by the police. Cliff says this all started happening when the police said they wouldn't go after anybody shoplifting anything under £100 worth of value. 55,000 thefts every day across the UK. In this hour, we're going to talk to Elizabeth Oakeshott because we've got hold of a picture of a man in broad daylight waving a machete around in absolutely no fear of being arrested or stopped by the police. In this case, he actually was, thankfully. But you'll have seen the state of our nation, the state of the roads, the state of the bins, the state of the rubbish piling up in places like Birmingham and elsewhere. Meanwhile, we've got Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Rachel Reeves back in the news this morning, facing fresh embarrassment after she was forced to admit receiving yet another lavish freebie. Unbelievable stuff, right? This is the same woman who said that she wouldn't do it anymore. Turns out she's had to declare yet another visit to a theatre, a ridiculously embarrassing sounding show, because she apparently was watching Michael Sheen starring as Nye Bevan. £265 worth of tickets given to her, her husband and several members of her family. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, I'm afraid, is a two-faced hypocrite. It's as simple as that. Also, Keir Starmer, another two-faced hypocrite. He happens to be the Prime Minister of the country. Yesterday he was talking about how, we haven't watered down the inquiry into the grooming gangs. We're going to give some money to some local authorities and we'll see what they can do. Well, I'm afraid there is a massive rebellion coming his way, and it could be bad enough to dislodge him, and it can be bad enough to dislodge this entire government, because even Dan Hodges, the Labour supporter, Labour member, Labour journalist, basically, a man who tells the truth when he sees it, even if it's against his own party, has said this is obviously a massive cover-up, and we know why it's a massive cover-up. We'll be getting stuck into that. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk a bit about the markets going up and down, of course, as well, because that's still all happening. Donald Trump, though, gave an amazing sort of press conference stroke cabinet meeting yesterday, in which the world's media were invited in to watch him grilling every single member of his cabinet, from Mark Rubio to Elon Musk to the head of the FBI to the head of the CIA to the head of international security, homeland security. It was quite a thing to see. I sat and watched it for over an hour. Quite extraordinary. 0344 499 1000. Also, it's Gaff Prone Friday, of course. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. The breaking news, the UK economy grew by 0.5% in February, according to the Office for National Statistics. Well, don't worry, because that's all been wiped out by the stock market drop in the last couple of days. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's not exactly where you want to be. Phil in Coventry says, this, I eat a lot of salmon. Maybe that's why I fancy doing a bungee jump and I hate heights. Could be. You're not as anxious as you used to be. Robert says, Mike, have any of these risk-taking, reckless salmon been going into Greggs? Says Robin Lincoln. Carl in Shrewsbury says, when I was 9 years old, I nicked a packet of Chewits from Quick Save. My dad found out and took me to the police station. The police then put me in a cell for 4 hours while my mum and dad went shopping. Police then gave me a stern warning, and ever since then I've never stolen a single thing again. These days the parents would probably be arrested for psychological harm to a child. I bet they would, actually. Absolutely right. Let's talk to Sunil Sharma, political commentator, host of the Rational Voices with Sir Neil podcast. Sunil, very good to see you.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to talk to you. Let's talk about what's going on the front lines of Labour. Massive rebellion coming on this grooming gang story. I think they've got it incredibly wrong. You know, Jess Phillips thought she could sneak it into the end of the final session of Parliament just the other day. I think it was Tuesday, and it turns out that it's blown up in their faces, hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think the reality is Labour are trying to cover this up or give it less attention as it needs. I think we all know why a lot of this stuff happened in Labour-led councils. They don't want to lose that demographic vote, so naturally they're going to try and not do anything with this grooming gang scandal. It is, I think, great attention needs to be drawn on this. It is sick. It is worrying that the fact that the safety of young girls is not the top priority of our leader, when we know for a fact that they've been assaulted, groomed, all these different things over the last 10, 15, 20 years, and it's out there, it's in the open, it's in plain sight. What kind of message does it send to the rest of the country when our leadership, our current government are not prepared to take the harshest possible action? I think it's really sick. It's really messed up, and I think a lot of people will, if they're not angry enough right now, will be further angered by what's going on.
Well, this is it, and I mean, there's a grassroots rebellion which is bubbling under and getting bigger and bigger by the day. There's a campaign group called Blue Labour. They're calling it a national evil that requires a national response, rather similar to what you were saying. And basically, Keir Starmer's rejected any demand to launch a statutory inquiry. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
Of course, I accept the argument that there should be wider inquiries. There have been a number of inquiries. We've had hundreds of recommendations. We've had a national inquiry with 22 recommendations. My strong belief is we've got to implement those recommendations. At the moment, and under the last government, they just stacked up and sat on a shelf. So they need to be implemented. We're now implementing the recommendations from the national inquiry. 17 of them we're taking forward. Of course, if there's further local inquiries that are needed, then we put some funding behind that and they should happen. But I don't think that simply saying we need more inquiries when we haven't even acted on the ones that we've had is necessarily the only way forward.
The problem, of course, for Starmer is that he's had all sorts of inquiries into many other things which are nowhere near as important as this. And the other problem he's got is that Blue Labour was started by a guy called Lord Glassman, a Labour peer, who's very close to Morgan McSweeney, who is kind of the brains behind whatever Keir Starmer does. So this ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
And rightly so, this should not be going anywhere. Like, you know, I don't understand how hard it is for him to come out there and say this is almost like a national emergency. How hard is it for him to say the priorities of those victims are going to come first and foremost, and then what we're going to do is make sure this never happens again? I just don't understand why this isn't, for him right now, his number one priority in solving this horrendous crimes that have happened in the last 10, 15 years, to sit there and just pass along to local authorities who are already under-resourced, underqualified, don't have the capacity to know what to do in this circumstance. They've failed these people for the last 10, 15 years. The idea that they're now going to be able to save these people is ludicrous. He needs to put way more resources into solving this. I don't think it's that hard. I think most people, regardless of where they stand politically, socially, will agree that what happened in the last 10, 15 years is sick and wrong. And I think everyone, majority of people in this country, would be more than willing to help and to put an end to it. Yeah. I just don't understand his logic in terms of what he's doing right now.
No, exactly right. And an awful lot of Muslim community leaders have also been saying that they want something done because they're getting affected by this, because as much as they are not involved in the grooming gangs and the rape gangs, because they tend to be from a very small portion of particular sections of Pakistan who happen to be living now in this country, you know, they want to be sort of given a clear wall between them and these ghastly individuals, but that's not happening.
No, and I think that's the deeply concerning thing. I think the reality is that the priorities of Starmer and this Labour government are not in the best interests of the people of this country. They feed the globalist elites in Westminster and Brussels, not the everyday person. And I think what's really, really worrying is you talked about Greggs earlier on in terms of people stealing things from shops like Greggs. I think when you're not even safe in your own country, I think that is such a big concern. We know economically they're failing. We know structurally the country is failing. But when you're now starting to question the safety of young girls or just general people at work or just general people in this country, I think that's really a step too far.
Exactly right. And meanwhile, Rachel Reeves back in the news this morning. She's taken yet another freebie. It was a while ago, but she's only just declared it. And she said only recently that she wouldn't do this anymore. It looks like she was talking absolute and utter BS.
Well, again, I think for a lot of people, again, the hypocrisy, they went rightly after a lot of the Tory government, the previous government, in terms of some of the stuff they were doing like this, and rightly so, they made a lot of anger towards that, and now they're doing the exact same thing, if not doing it worse, that they're lying on record. I just don't think they care. I don't think Rachel Reeves sits there and thinks the fact that she's already said that she's not going to do it and that she still continues to do it. She doesn't understand the implications because of where her surroundings, her little bubble, she doesn't actually feel the impact. She doesn't feel the impact of the grooming gangs that's going on. She doesn't feel the impact of people being less safe because she can, dance away at these theatre places and be away from the actual realities of the UK for the majority of people. So they are so unaware of what's going on in this country and the priorities of other people in this country that they're stuck in this kind of, globalist elite program or place. And so the rest of the country just doesn't matter. So I think they kind of feel like they can do what they want. And I think that's really bad for the country overall.
I think so. Sunil, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Sunil Sharma, political commentator, host of the Rational Voices with Sunil podcast. Nothing short of a full national inquiry into grooming gangs will satisfy the electorate, says Alan in Merseyside. Jess Phillips' credibility is in tatters, as is indeed the state of this entire government. Their credibility has to lie in tatters, doesn't it? Because they're not in control of anything. Front page of the Sun today, all about bacon take. Greg suffering a crisis in the shoplifting business because people are literally wandering into shops all over the country and walking out with stuff. Sandwiches, packets of crisps, bottles of water, bottles of juice, whatever they want, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, they're taking it. We've uncovered some more lawlessness just over the last 24 hours, and we're about to show you a picture of somebody now wandering the streets in broad daylight in this country, Great Britain in 2025. You'll see him there carrying a massive machete. Nobody knows why he's carrying a massive machete, but what we do know is this is happening all over the country. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Isabel, we do really seem to be going further and further down the drain with every single day that passes here.
I mean, this is just shocking, this picture. This happened on a nice sunny afternoon, not in London. We're not going to go into exactly where it was, but it wasn't in, a massive, rough area of a city centre. And this guy's just casually walking around with a machete as if this is a totally normal thing to do. And the worrying thing is that we are becoming normalised to this type of horrendous behaviour. In this case, the police were called, 999 situation. I'm happy to say nobody was hurt. The police were brilliant. They arrived really quickly. I don't actually know if he was apprehended because he quite likely had wandered off, even though it was a rapid response. But the scale of knife crime across England and Wales, and doubtless in Scotland too, but the figures I've been looking at are England and Wales, it is on the up quite dramatically. We have effectively every day and a half, there's somebody murdered with a knife in the UK. 262 murders in the year ending March last year. So actually the figures are quite out of date, and I would be very pleasantly surprised if they've gone down at all. The latest figures only go up to end of March 2024. Over 50,000 offences involving a knife recorded by the police. But of course, what's recorded by the police is probably surely only the tip of the iceberg. And this is just lawless Britain, isn't it? To me, that image captures the absolute terrifying descent of our country, the descent of our streets, and how people feel about being out in this kind of environment. I know that for many people, certain town centres and city centres and parts of our cities become no-go areas after dark. That's just a fact. That's how particularly women feel in parts of the UK. How have we got to a point where also bits of Britain are becoming no-go areas in broad daylight.
Yeah, absolutely right. I was talking to a friend of mine who lives down on the south coast, who said that she's noticed in the last just couple of months, actually, how much worse it's got. She's noticed walking down the street, she's being watched by a lot of young men who are sitting around, seemingly not doing very much of anything. They're of Syrian, you know, you can't be sure where they're from, but they're not from England. They're of Syrian appearance, they're of Afghan appearance, they look as if they're from Iran, you know, and there's an awful lot of them sitting around doing nothing. And she said it wasn't even like this 6 months ago.
And that's it. It's the pace of decline that I think is so shocking to people all over the country. And, you know, there are pockets of the UK, of course there are, which are still lovely and tranquil and unaffected by this. But I think terrifyingly, it's creeping ever further out. And, you know, we've been talking earlier on the show about this massive crisis in shoplifting and highlighting the case of Greggs. I mean, a couple of months ago, I myself was in Tesco in central London and witnessed a guy shoplifting, and I basically tried to get them to do something about it, the security, and it was a massive shrug. You know, this is how it is. I'm going to carry on confronting people that I see shoplifting or trying to do something about it. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but unless those who feel that they have the confidence call this out, bring it to the attention of security staff, do what you can, which is safe, then what? Are we just going to accept this about our society? Because I'm not.
Well, exactly right, and an awful lot of the shoplifting that's done, I'm sure, in Greggs is done by people who know that nobody will say anything. You know, the sort of the architecture, I suppose, of a Greggs shop means that you don't really see anyone unless there's a security guard on the door. They're all behind a counter. I've seen people going into shops, we've all seen them stealing things, you know, and you are either able to do something about it or not. But in the end, it comes down to the police. Surely I mean, it's been put to me that all of this got worse when the police announced, rather stupidly, they wouldn't prosecute anybody if they stole stuff under £100. And so people just thought, well, if nobody's going to even say anything to me, well, I'll just keep doing it.
Well, among the many breathtakingly stupid things this government has done, within its very first weeks in power, it symbolically let out a load of hardened criminals from jails. And if that doesn't send you totally the wrong message about a government's attitude to law and order, I don't know what does. I think that these supermarkets and chains like Greggs make a great deal of money. You know, they have fat profits. So it's time for them too to step up and employ security guards that actually mean it. You know, what's the point of having scarecrows? Very soon, even birds get used to the idea that a scarecrow isn't actually going to come and get them. And I'm afraid far too many of the security officers hanging around the entrances of our supermarkets and stores are nothing more than scarecrows, and they're not prepared, and it's not their fault, it's their company policy to be anything more than scarecrows. Well, Greggs, Sainsbury's, all the rest of them, Tesco, that are suffering from shoplifting, step up, employ people who are actually going to do something and give them the bandwidth to do it. I'm sure these security guys don't actually want to just stand there like wet blankets doing nothing, and as they see people shoplifting, let them do their actual job.
And if you put gates up, you know, that should probably help, because it will stop people from going in and out. I mean, I don't care if there's a gate that you have to come out of, and it doesn't open unless you've got a receipt. I don't really mind any of that. But, you know, we're going to have to do something, because it's not, as you say, it's not just the shoplifting. It's the attitude generally on the street. You know, people are ruder. People are less willing to open doors for each other. People are getting on the tube before you get off. I know that's going to sound like, you know, some, you know, silly old English person having a go, but it's what used to make this country great. It was polite. People used to say thank you when you let them in. You know, even letting cars in, you know, people stopped saying thank you.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mike, on that. There is a base level of aggression, particularly in city centres, particularly London, where people are stressed and, you know, life can be tough. You don't really realise perhaps how bad it is until you go to a country where it isn't like that. And, you know, I live overseas, and I really notice the contrast, you know, the basic level of manners, courtesy that I see around me overseas is in really sharp contrast, I'm afraid, the kind of behaviour that has been normalised in many parts of Britain. I mean, home for me, I'm lucky enough to live in a lovely Cotswold village, and people still say good morning. And why can't we keep up these lovely things, where people say good afternoon, good evening? That's what a civilised society should be, not youths wandering around suburbia with 14-inch blade knives. Come on.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, we get lies and more lies from the government. We've got Keir Starmer yesterday talking about how they haven't watered down the grooming gangs inquiry, even though they have. He talks about launching a new police initiative to put something like, I think it's 12,000 more police officers on the beat. But it's not until 2029. So, you're not going to feel the heat of that whatsoever. And also, he says, well, we're going to make sure that they concentrate on, patrolling in areas where there are high levels of crime. Well, everybody knows where they are, so just do it now.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only way to get on top of this is to have a real, serious, zero-tolerance crackdown. You've got to flood it with people who have got the authority to do what it takes to actually send out a message. We're not doing this anymore. I mean, this government has shown that when it really wants to, it's entirely capable of harnessing the full might of the state to crack down on things. They got control of the riots by acting really, really tough. I don't agree with a lot of the sentencing decisions there, but it was pretty effective. You've got to give it that. And until we actually see the authorities routinely taking a very hard stance on the little stuff, all that happens is it escalates to the bigger stuff. If you can just saunter in and take what you want from Greg's, next thing you're going to saunter in and take what you want from a jewelry store, can't even say that properly, and you're going to carry a knife.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next thing that happens is they're going to walk into your house and take whatever they want as well.
Well, quite. And there we are. And that is the descent of Britain that we are witnessing. And please, somebody in power, do something about it. Don't let us all just have to kind of suck it up and accept that this is the Britain that is going to be our future, because I don't think that's what anybody wants.
Well, one of the safest parts of London now is safer because of the people who have spent private money on private security, and that's Mayfair. You go to Mayfair now, outside almost every restaurant, outside almost every shop, almost every sort of, shop front, whether it's a hotel, whatever it is, they've hired the top of the line, because I've spoken to people who work in security, and these are the guys who they hire from, like, special forces, and they're not messing around. And nobody goes in there and causes any trouble anymore, and the watch gangs aren't as prevalent as they were, because they know there's some pretty handy-looking guys out there. If they get caught by them, they're not going to enjoy it.
Well, there you go. I mean, these are people who have the authority to actually do something. Anyone can make a citizen's arrest, and I'm not suggesting, all our listeners go round arresting people themselves, but at the very least, the security people who are being paid to keep control, should be able to do that. And actually, you touch on something that is much wider. There are now communities up and down the country who are clubbing together, particularly business groups, to hire effectively private policing. And the private policing has the authority to bring civil cases. And I know there are companies that take pride in prosecuting every single offence that they're involved in. But you know what? People are entitled to say, well, yeah, that's all well and good, but hang on a minute. We're being taxed at the highest level for the last 70 years. And I'm now going to have to pay for private security along with having to pay for private healthcare if I have to wait a year and so on. What exactly are our taxes being used for? Pretty sure I've got a good idea. An awful lot is going on illegal immigration.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor there, giving us the lowdown on broken Britain, lawless Britain, in fact, and the fact that somebody can be pictured walking down the street in broad daylight in what, as she described, a reasonable, middle of the road English town, where nobody has any fear of carrying a big blade like a machete. Absolutely extraordinary. Let's get a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby here. I listened to that interview with that solicitor, on Peter Cardwell last night when I got home from work. And God, what a vile little man he is, isn't he? And you know what the worst thing is? There's probably a good chance that he might actually win in this country, because this country is just messed up. Great show, Mike.
Sean, thank you very much indeed. Well, I'll tell you how messed up it is. A judge who presides over deportation asylum appeals, and is one of the guys who actually made a decision that came out this week about the Greek drug dealer who couldn't be sent home because, unfortunately, you know, he hadn't made any money during COVID, and that was why he became a cannabis dealer, and so therefore he can stay here. Today's migrant of the day, he can't be sent home because he's got too many Facebook friends. And he can't go to Iran because he's been publishing some stuff on his Facebook page about how awful the Tehran government is. Well, here's a story in the Times today, and it was unveiled actually by Robert Jenrick, a judge whose name I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce correctly because it's Irish, Greg O'Seela, I'm going to say, has publicly supported the campaign to reverse Brexit, posted jokes about Jimmy Savile, made derogatory remarks about Conservative politicians and President Trump, also said that the Conservative Party should be dealt with as you would deal with the Nazis, and also said that basically illegal migration to the UK should be decriminalised. This is a guy who's in charge of whether people get sent home or not. And in fact, he may well be in the deep doo-doo, because it turns out that he would appear to have breached social media guidance for judges issued by Lady Chief Justice Dame Sue Carr. The guidance says active use of social media by the judiciary is discouraged. Judges who nevertheless choose to use social media must be alert to the potential security and reputational risk and should follow the guidance below. He's originally from Dublin, and he's a barrister specialising in, guess what? Human rights. These people are ruining Britain. I kid you not. 7:28.
This is the sense of passport pilfering by the Home Office, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
When you look at a family of, you know, two adults, 2 children, it's now a passport's going to be around £330.
Yeah.
And that's a huge amount of money to add on to the costs, increasing costs that we've got for holidays, VATs that are being increased for people across the country, and a burden that is not necessary if we actually reduce those people coming to this country across the channel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:31. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Let's get a voice note from Tim.
Good morning, Mike. Well, I'm absolutely appalled that Keir Starmer has promised 3,000 more policemen on the beat, and then in South Yorkshire they're only recruiting non-white policemen. Now this is Keir Starmer once again, the two-faced image of Keir Starmer we see, that he says one thing, but it covers the lies that he tells in another. This is reverse racism, and this is Britain. I've had enough of this, and I think the people of Britain have had enough.
Absolutely.
Good show, Mike. Keep it up.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. People have had enough. This is why we're highlighting every single day, because we need to join up the dots here, because what you need to believe is what we tell you, not what Keir Starmer tells you, because what he tells you masks the truth. Everybody knows that. He keeps telling us he's putting money back into our pockets. He's not doing that. He keeps telling us he's making our streets safer. They're not any safer. He keeps telling us they're building back the economy. It's not building back. We just got a breaking news story this morning. 0.5% is what the economy grew by in February. Once again, it's more sort of mealy mouth just bumping along at the bottom of the sea, really. You know, seabed, no rises, no real falls, nothing to write home about. Rachel Reeves' statement this morning, these growth figures are an encouraging sign, but we are not complacent. Well, how are they encouraging? The world has changed, she says, and we have witnessed that change in recent weeks. Oh, really? What, only you were the people that didn't think Donald Trump was going to get in. Everybody else did. I know this is an anxious time for families, so we're worried about the cost of living. She's just been to another free theatre show. Very nice for her too and her family. She says British businesses who are worried about what this change means for them. This government will remain pragmatic and cool-headed as we seek to secure the best deal with the United States. Which is not really up to them, it's up to them. It's up to the US, isn't it? Let's talk to Justin Urquhart-Stewart and see what he makes of all of it. Justin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I'm sorry, I can't take Rachel Reeves seriously, really. I mean, when she talks about 0.5% being an encouraging sign, it's not really, is it?
Well, it's not growing. I mean, what you have to do with these figures, they're highly unreliable. Come out every month, and what you have to do is actually sort of take an average over the period, and the average just tells you very simply it's flat. It's flat, and it's virtually at naught. So whether it's 0.5 up, 0.5 down. Yeah. Where basically nothing is going on. Yeah. And you only have to look, actually, when you're looking at the other trading figures going on, there's very little confidence going on at the moment. People aren't spending as much. And you look at the housing market as well, that's sort of burbling along. Not exactly, this is the main time people should be moving house.
Well, we know.
This is the key area.
Well, I mean, there's a reason nothing's happening in the economy, and it's all down to the government and the various different taxes that they've applied to things, you know, like first-time buyers, like capital gains, like national insurance for companies. You know, there's a reason why nothing's happening.
There's no confidence. That's the key word that runs any economy. Now, if you're running in the economy now, there's one area that you could directly have an impact, which would have a knock-on, a multiplier effect to the rest of the economy. And that is completely reverse the stamp duty changes. In fact, I would actually get rid of stamp duty on house purchasing altogether. Yeah. Because what happens when you move a house or flat or whatever you happen to be doing, you get the kitchen goes, the bathroom goes, everything seems to disappear, and you repurchase, you redecorate. Yeah. You'll spend more money, and therefore that's more money going through the economy. And good heavens, the government owes more VAT. So that's an easy way, because we know full well that people will be moving property. You just give them the incentive to do so.
It's a bit of a no-brainer, really, it seems to me. But God knows, we need something to kind of to shoot the economy into the ether and sort of fire it into some kind of activity.
You don't even need to spend very much money, because after all, what you've got is you have things like enterprise investment schemes and things like that, which actually help companies get going. They don't actually cost anything to the government, and they just operate as guarantees. So you have that guarantee for a company in wherever it happens to be in the country. And it can mean up to 50% of the capital can actually get some coverage, some support for it. Now, give people that sort of confidence, say, I'll have a go. And lo and behold, companies start up again. Now, unfortunately, they're going to be reducing some of this. I would actually expand this further throughout the entire country, make it larger, and actually you'll be surprised actually then what happens. And because we are actually very good at setting up small businesses. Well, we're not so good at actually growing businesses. And that's the next thing you then deal with, is actually then make sure there's more capital provided. Now, I don't mean government capital, but capital actually being fed into industry, so that companies can actually grow more. That means having more efficient capital markets, which we haven't got at the moment. But that's an area that can be addressed actually quite easily if the government wanted to.
Absolutely right. It reminds me of the old joke back in the sort of late 80s when Wall Street was crashing. People said, "How do you start up with a small company? You know, start off with a big one and watch it shrink." But there we are. Justin, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Justin Urquhart-Stewart there, economist, a proper economist, by the way, who says that we're just bumping along. It's flat. There's nothing happening. Don't worry about what Rachel Reeves says. She says these growth figures are an encouraging sign. Well, they're not, because it's like the same as it being zero, literally nothing. You know, the square root of sweet FA. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. Just listening to this story about West Yorkshire Police now having a policy of not employing white police officers. There's going to be wider repercussions of this in the future if they don't put a stop to it. There's going to be a whole generation of young white men who feel that the future has been totally stolen from them. The country's been stolen from them. And when all these kids now go and seeing career officers, sorry, you can't be a policeman because you're white, when they start going into pubs when they're 17, 18, and there's other people start telling them your future's been taken, they think Andrew Tate's a problem. There's going to be more and louder and very powerful people who are going to harness all that anger and all that frustration, and it's going to be a big problem for the country with a whole generation of white lads.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I don't doubt that you're right. People are fed up to the back teeth of the way that this ridiculousness is being ordered around now, particularly in the public sector. And Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, says she's not going to do anything about it. Police operational, independence. Ridiculous. Now, it's Gaff Prone Friday, so let's do another one. And this is me and Isabel Oakeshott doing Scottish. Well, I can do quite a good Scottish accent if you need somebody to step in at the last minute. No problem at all. I'm sure Isabel Oakeshott can do the same. She spent a bit of time up there. Isabel, very good morning to you.
I totally can. What kind of accent do you want?
Well, I mean apparently it's now discrimination up in Scotland to discriminate against people with Scottish accents, which tells you everything that's gone mad.
As you know, there's not just one Scottish accent. There's a lot of them. So you want a Glaswegian or on Edinburgh. There's many different ones.
Should we just carry on this interview with Scottish accents then? Is that what you're saying?
We really could do, couldn't we?
Yeah, maybe we should do that on St Andrew's Day. Just do a whole show in Scottish. Why not, indeed? We've got lots more to do. Coming up, we're going to be talking about motoring and whether or not, actually, the government, who say they are the friend of the motorist, really are. I think you know what I'm going to say. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 7:40 is the time. The stock market will be opening soon, and we'll keep you abreast of all of that. We had some fun games yesterday in America once again with the tariffs. We had Donald Trump calling people's bluff. Prices going up, prices going down, yields going up, yields going down. I mean, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride at the moment. I think for anybody who's got some worries about it, just sit tight and see where you are in a couple of weeks' time. Let's talk to Maria McCarthy now, those motoring journalists, because the Labour government, once again, amongst many of the things that they claim to be, is a friend of the motorist. They basically said, oh, we're going to try and make it easier for people to drive their cars, despite the fact that they're putting up their prices every single time you turn around, despite the fact that they're putting tolls on things that didn't used to have tolls on them, and the fact that they're charging people more and more money to get parking fines, to get speeding fines and all the rest of it. Maria, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. It's hard to imagine that this government would try and convince anyone that they're the friend of the motorist, but yet here they are trying to do it.
Yeah, I think that the thing about motoring is, I think as anybody who's ever driven in a congested area is aware, you know, it is actually a good idea not to have that many cars in, like, you know, a really busy city centre. But what you've got to do, I think, is one of the things the minister said was you can sort of like, she quoted somebody who said that an advanced city is not one where the poor have to own a car, but one where the rich choose to use public transport. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is an awful lot of sticks used against the motorists. Now, of course, some people absolutely need to use their car. You know, they've got tricky, difficult journeys to make. You know, they've got tools in their vans and so forth. But lots of us, you know, myself, for example, when I'm in London, you know, I'm perfectly happy to use public transport. But what you've got to do is you've got to make it better. You've got to make it cheaper. You've got to make it safer. And you've got to make it more frequent, particularly in rural areas. I mean, the people I really feel for are, I live in a rural area myself, or on the edge of one, are people who they absolutely need their car. It's not a choice. They need to get it to work, they need to get it to their children to school, they need to get it to visit family members, and they are the people, I think, who are being really, really squeezed, and those are the people I think that we ought to look at how we can support them.
Yeah, but an awful lot of what I'm talking about is the amount of money it now costs to be a motorist, and whether you are a tradesman and you're driving because you need to drive for a living, or whether you're a taxi driver, or whether you're a car hire driver who works for one of the other companies, you know, everybody's being squeezed. The car prices and the taxes on cars are going up. You know, the luxury tax has been introduced for a car that's worth more than £40,000. You know, they put a toll on a tunnel in London, which hasn't had a toll on it for decades, the Blackwall Tunnel. You know, that's going to cost people £4 every time they go through it. I was talking to the guy that drove me into work today. You know, I have to come in a car because there's no public transport at that time of the morning that's reliable enough to get me into work. So, you know, and you'd be surprised at how many people are out and about at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, the fact is that it's all very well for them to say that they're the friend of the motorist, but they blatantly are not.
I do agree about all the taxes. It's becoming absolute. If you're an average person with, like, you know, average bills, you know, for your home and everyday costs, and then you look at your motoring bills, so many people just can't do it, particularly young people. And I think that's really, really difficult about, like, the cost of learning to drive, which is the area I'm very focused on, the insurance for young people. And so many young people work in things like, say, the catering industry, where it's not a choice. You have to, like, you know, get home from, like, you know, working in the restaurant at, like, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right.
Of course, you need a car. So, you know, so I think things like that. So I don't worry too much about, like, the luxury car people. You know, if you're going out buying a brand new sort of Audi, then, you know, I've never done it.
So you're now an enemy of the people if you buy an Audi. Is that what it is? I mean, these are people who are paying a lot of taxes already.
That was just a random brand name.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that, you know, these are the people that pay most taxes in this country, and you've got a succession of mayors and a succession of MPs who want to basically make it more and more difficult for them to buy cars and to pay tax. And so the less tax they pay, the less tax the government gets in, and the less they can give to people to spend on public transport. So they're kind of disappearing up their own backside, if you don't mind me saying so.
No, I don't mind you saying it at all. I'm just sort of saying that I suppose the area of motoring I focus on personally is everyday motoring and everyday people motoring. So I don't actually spend a lot of time like thinking about, you know, the point you've made actually about, like, the high-end cars. I tend to sort of think, oh, well, you know, if you're buying a high-end car, you've probably got, like, a lot of money in the bank. But I see what you mean.
Yeah, but there's a reason why people who are buying high-end cars are keeping the markets afloat. They're paying more tax. You know, the more VAT you pay on the higher cost cars. So, I mean, if the government starts to discourage people from buying high-end cars, then they won't be collecting as much VAT. That's kind of my point. They're actually, you know, they're actually harming their own tax raising abilities.
Yeah, no, I do take that point. Yeah, it's a good point.
It is. All my points are good. That's why I have a show like this. But tell me, I mean, what is also the problem, I think, for an awful lot of people, as you say, is rural driving, and those people are affected just as much. I mean, I haven't spoken to anyone, I don't think, this year whose road tax has not gone up, you know, because they see road tax as a way of it's kind of a stealth tax, as people don't really notice it. But, you know, it's gonna in the end it's gonna impinge upon the economic value, because if you haven't got a car, you can't get a job, you can't go anywhere. You know, it's difficult.
It is really, really difficult. And I mean, I was always sense of the topic of public transport, but I think at least I think that would be something you could do. At least you could offer the carrot of good public transport as opposed to always offering the stick. Because I think that would help in terms of, reducing congestion, for example. I mean, you come into work at 5 o'clock in the morning, so presumably congestion is not that bad. But, lots of journeys that you make in city centres, they are just painful. And you sort of think, if only some of these people could, like, the able-bodied, the students, like the youngsters, were on the bus, I could get from A to B a lot quicker.
But there are loads of buses in London and they drive around empty a lot of the time, because, again, you have people who are travelling mostly at certain times of the day. And you maybe need those buses between the hours of, say, 7 and 9:30, but you don't need them then to be driving around for the rest of the day. And they haven't seemed to have worked that out yet.
I think that London buses, I think, are horrendous because you can't get off them. I mean, but I'm young enough to remember, and so perhaps when actually you could run along and jump on a bus. And then when it was your fault, you could just jump off it.
Right.
I was young and nimble in those days. Whereas now, if you're on a bus, you're just trapped on it. And sometimes it takes ages to go from one stop to the other. And so you feel like you want to beat against the doors.
Oh, I know. It's very frustrating. But, of course, if they hadn't put any cycle lanes in, we'd all have a lot more room to actually drive on. But that's another story. Maria, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Maria McCarthy, motoring journalist. I think she agrees with me that the government is not very car-friendly. They're not very motorist-friendly because in the end of the day, they're charging us more and more money to do something that used to be a lot less expensive. It's that simple. Let's get a voice note from Tony.
Good morning, Mike. It's Tony from Kent. Can you imagine with this police force if we was to say only whites be allowed to be a police officer? God, we'd have rights on the street.
Yeah, of course you would. And the rights in the street wouldn't be policed by the hard-headed police. They'd be policed by the soft-headed police who wouldn't be going in arresting anybody because, of course, that's how it works. But, of course, don't ever anybody say we've got two-tier policing in this country. Kenny from Edinburgh says, Mike, I wonder if Rachel from Accounts has been into Greggs to nick a sausage roll yet. We know how she loves a freebie. Well, no, she's probably had them delivered for free to number 11 Downing Street because, she's working so hard. Great news that the gold prices are rocketing, says Steve. Oh, no, sorry, forgot that certain Gordon Brown sold all of ours off. Yeah, gold's at record highs. Yeah, well done, Gordon. It's fantastic, the Iron Chancellor. Peter did a great job with Frank, says Pauline, but it would be really good to see you talk to him. Any chance you'll get him on your show from Pauline in Maui? I don't think I would ever entertain anyone like that. I'm very happy that Peter did it. He did a great job interviewing him. I would never have a scumbag like that on my show. 7:49.
We are seeing more people put onto these boats as well, and that is because the demand is not abated at all. Yes, we might be making things slightly more difficult for the people smugglers, putting a bit of grit in the ointment, but we're not really doing anything to stem those flows. And that's why when the Labour Party came in and they decided to scrap all semblance of a deterrent, they really effectively bound themselves to a policy that is doomed to fail, because if you don't do anything that would persuade individuals looking to cross the channel that it's not worth their while and that they won't get asylum.
And here's why they think it is worth their while. They know they've got a very good chance of getting here, and once they're here, the odds are they're going to be allowed to stay.
This is the sense of passport pilfering by the Home Office, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
When you look at a family of, two adults, 2 children, it's now a passport's going to be around £330.
Yeah.
And that's a huge amount of money to add on to the increasing costs that we've got for holidays, VATs that are being increased for people across the country, and a burden that is not necessary if we actually reduce those people coming to this country across the channel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. This is Mike Graham right here with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It's 7:51. We've got lots and lots of stories today. It's incredible. It's so busy this week. We haven't got round to all the stories. The Birmingham residents are burning rubbish, right, as the strike chaos spirals out of control. We'll be talking to somebody up there about whether or not that's even legal. I think it's probably not very safe. I mean, I don't think burning, toxic anything, which is including some plastic, is in any way going to be a good thing. But we heard this week from a lorry driver that the stink surrounding Birmingham is absolutely bleeding awful. And it's not the only place, of course, in Britain which stinks, because we're going to talk now to Gareth Cunningham, Director of Conservation and Policy at the Marine Conservation Society. They've got some analysis of Environment Agency data from the Lib Dems, which shows that the extent of sewage spills polluting British seas and rivers is still as horrendous as it's ever been. The worst spill was from South West Water, which reported spilling sewage from one outlet in Salcombe for 366 days. And you might say, hang on a minute, that's one day more than normal for a year. No, it was a leap year, 2024. So, all you smart asses out there, it's 366 days that year. Let's have a word, see what's going on. Gareth, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, this is about as depressing a story as I've seen today, and I've seen quite a few, to be honest. When is this ever going to end? It doesn't seem to be anything that anybody can do about it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, the numbers that have been released show that others gone down slightly. As you've shown with the maths, there's an extra day in the year. Yeah. It's really bad. We've assessed something around the region of 3 million hours of sewage going into the sea.
3 million hours?
3 million.
Is that in a year?
In a year.
That's hard to imagine, isn't it? And I mean,
yeah, it is.
I mean, the age-old question, I mean, we presumably, the Environment Agency fines these water companies. They pay the fine. We know the story. They don't want to, change the systems. I mean, I think you and I spoke last year, and down in Bexhill, where there was one of the really bad spillages, they have actually put a new pipe in, because I go there with my dog on a fairly regular basis. So they've done something there. I don't know if that's made any difference to that particular outlet, but I mean, if more of these water companies did that, would that help?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The infrastructure we're using just isn't up to the job in hand.
Yeah.
A lot of it's old. We're obviously having a lot more rain. And what we've got in the UK is combined systems. So the combined takes all that rainwater and flushes it down the same system where your sewage goes. That's a combined sewage overflow. So when we get really heavy rainfall, sewage system can't contain that. It floods out and that ends up in our sea.
Right.
So investment in new materials, new infrastructure is the only way we're going to address this.
Yeah. But then yet we've got people like Thames Water basically being declared bankrupt, because I can't imagine how. I mean, I still fail to understand how you can run a company that operates on a sort of a natural resource that falls for free from the sky, and you get to sell it on to somebody, but you can't make any money doing it. I mean, it sort of doesn't compute in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk to their business model, but clearly, as the Lib Dems have said, what we're seeing is payment for bonuses. You and me wouldn't get a bonus if we weren't doing our job properly.
No.
What we need to see is that money going into the infrastructure, not into people's pockets.
Yes. And how can that then be made to happen? Because it seems like people have tried, and government maybe haven't tried hard enough, but whatever we're doing, it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, the government has brought in some new measures. So there's an independent water commissioner who's meant to be making recommendations this summer. And that includes looking at the powers of Ofwat, bringing in, more mechanisms to claw back that money and put it into infrastructure. But it hasn't happened yet. So we do need to see these things happen at pace. And when that report comes out, I hope the government acts on it really swiftly.
I mean, could there not be a better sort of scientific solution? I mean, we know there are sewage treatment plants. I mean, are they not capable of dealing with all the sewage? Is that the problem?
I mean, it's not so much, as I say, it's not so much just the sewage system. It's the fact that we combine it with the overflow. So every time it rains, it goes into the same system.
Right.
So there are ways we can address that. But it's not just the sewage, unfortunately, that's coming out here. It's all the other runoff. So all the litter that's on the streets, little bits of microplastics and forever chemicals are going down there too. And in fairness to the water companies, It's not on them to pick up litter. It's not on them to address that. So there does need to be some changes from the councils and also the companies that are producing these products in the first place.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you're still talking about raw sewage going into the sea, though. I mean, if it was treated sewage, it wouldn't be so bad, would it?
I mean, that's a good question. Treated sewage is less bad. Let's be clear. You know, it takes a lot of the viruses out, but it's still an awful lot of nutrients going to the sea. So that's not really any good for the environment. If you've got a mussel farm or a shellfish farm, that's not good for you either. And, you know, it's not very pleasant to swim in. So clean sewage or not, let's be honest, you don't want to be swimming in that. So let's try and sort that out.
Well, where else can you put it, though?
Well, there's a lot we can do with raw sewage. You can put it into an anaerobic digester. You can use it to power clean energy. And let's be honest, that's an endless supply of energy. Everyone uses the toilet every day. Exactly. Yeah. So there are things we can do there.
Can we give that responsibility to Ed Miliband? It seems like a good use of his time.
I'm sure you could ask him, yes.
I mean, you know, he's always saying we want renewable energy. Well, there you go. Here it is, right on a plate for you, Ed.
Exactly. And it's been done in other nations across the other side of the English Channel. So.
Right. Yeah, well,
it's feasible.
I've always had my doubts about the French. Well, listen, but surely to heavens they've got to be able to buy. But it's a bit like the crisis in the NHS every winter. You know, every year I could probably get you on from now until Kingdom Come, and we'd have the same conversation.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. This was one of the manifesto actions, wasn't it? This is one of the top line issues to be addressed during the election. It's not succeeded yet. That really needs to change. There needs to be a massive overhaul of the system, and we need to make sure that when we put in place the mechanisms to stop this happening, they're followed.
I mean, would you swim in the sea around Britain? Would you let your dog go in the sea?
So I do swim in the sea around Britain. Yeah. You can get apps that tell you when it's safe to, but let's be honest, that's not great. You want to go out when the weather's good or the tides are right. Yeah. You don't want to have to then think...
Well, I mean, it's going to be nice this weekend. It's going to be 24, 25 degrees today, I think.
Exactly. I mean, fortunately, we've not had an awful lot of rainfall, so the sea should be pretty clean. But, you know, that's not great, is it?
Snorkel and flippers, I suppose you'll be all right. Gareth, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Gareth Cunningham, Director of Conservation and Policy at the Marine Conservation Society. It must be something we can do. I think it's a job for Ed Miliband, definitely. Power your wind farm with some sewage. Perfect combination for Ed Miliband, surely. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mike. It's Nick in West Yorkshire. Regarding this policy by the West Yorkshire Police, do you think the British expat community on the Costa del Sol are saying to the Spanish police force, the Guardia Civil, can we have more white, overweight, red-faced coppers in the Spanish police force, please, to reflect the community? Otherwise, we can't respect the Spanish police. Oh, no, I don't either.
No. I think you might find yourself getting arrested by the Guardia Civil and slapped around a bit and beaten with a rubber hose. That's what they like to do, especially in Catalonia. Coming up, what have we got? John Rentoul. Surely he's going to find one of the stories we're doing today to be a story. We're going to be asking him about Keir Starmer and how it's all going for him. He seems to keep thinking if he tells us something, we're just going to keep believing it. But it's not working. And the old shine is beginning to come off Labour and the new government. They're not new anymore and they're not very good. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 8. Halfway through the show, the FTSE's going to open in a minute. We'll let you know how that goes. It's all over the place at the moment. Gold is up, though. Shame Gordon Brown sold it all off, or else we might be able to make some money from gold rising very high. John Rentoul's here, chief political commentator at The Independent. The UK economy grew by 0.5%. It might as well not have grown at all in February, according to proper economists. That's according to the Office for National Statistics. But, you know, not much happening. Piece in the Independent, actually, or the I newspaper, I should say today, Starmer's biggest problem, people actually feel poorer. Labour is urged to learn from the US Democrats' failure to address the cost of living. For the last 2 years leading up to the last general election, the political agenda was dominated by the cost of living. And that's the problem. For people who call into this show every single day, for people who wake up every morning and go to work, for trying to get on a bus, trying to get on a train, trying to get their car filled with petrol, they're feeling the strain. They're feeling as if they are worse off. And it's not getting any better anytime soon, despite whatever Keir Starmer wishes to tell us. And we all know what the truth of the matter is. The economy is pretty much flatlining. Very few people I know, apart from people in the public sector, have had a pay rise. But Keir Starmer keeps wandering around now, as he did yesterday, telling people that, you know, people's wages are rising faster than inflation. Well, really? Well, mine aren't. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Also, we've got a massive shoplifting crisis on our hands. Front page of the Sun today, Greg's Bake and Take crisis. 55,000 shoplifting events happening every single year now. People getting so absolutely fed up with it. £22 billion it's costing to retailers in this country. But it's all part of the dereliction of society, the way that society and the country seems to be completely unfolding and disintegrating before our very eyes. We'll find out what exactly is going on throughout the course of this hour. Meanwhile, the government's decided to spend millions and millions of pounds on buying some coal in from overseas in order to save British steel, which probably isn't British anymore since it's owned by the Chinese. See, it's all very complicated, this stuff. Rachel Reeves has had another freebie that she's had to admit to. Keir Starmer's in more trouble over the grooming gang's U-turn. And also, there's that big problem in Birmingham. People are now setting fire to their own rubbish in order to get rid of it. I mean, have we actually entered, you know, some kind of, you know, what is that Escape from New York film? Or what was the one with Mel Gibson down in Australia? Mad Max. People are going to start driving around in these kind of slightly altered wagons and motorbikes and three-wheel cars just to try and get themselves from point A to point B. Where are you going? I'm going to work. Well, where did you get that car from? I stole it. I've just had to convert it. It's running on sewage at the moment because obviously that's the best way to go now. It's renewable, it's cheap, it smells a bit, but don't worry about it. It's something like the world gone mad, isn't it? This is the Independent. No, it's not the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. It's Morning Glory. It's Gaff Prone Friday as well. Let's get it on. Dear me. I don't know how we managed to get to Friday because the world is also kind of spinning out of control a little bit. We'll find out in a minute what the FTSE's opened at. If you've got stocks and shares, don't worry about it because it'll all come out in the wash. John Rentoul is here, chief political commentator at The Independent. John, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
You know,
I like the Independent Republic, so...
Yes, I come to... Well, it's a sort of Independent Republic, you know, spin-off, so we're still sort of under the same umbrella, to be honest. I was going to ask... it's one of these weeks where there's so much to talk about. I don't know where to begin, really, but I thought maybe I'd ask you about Thomas Simmons, who's writing in the Eye today. Rachel Reeves is meeting up with EU financial chiefs because there's a significant suggestion, it would seem, that the Labour government is looking at moving a bit closer to the EU as things with America start to look a little bit more uncertain. What are you hearing about
that? Well, I haven't heard anything recently, but yeah, I mean that seems entirely sensible. One of the economic problems we have, one of the costs that we've had to bear, is the cost of an extremely hard Brexit. And if we can make trade with the EU easier, then that's in our financial interest, and we should do it.
It might be in their financial interest as well, because, I mean, they weren't exactly helpful, were they, when Brexit happened? So maybe they'd now realised if they had been more helpful, then everybody would have been better off.
Well, absolutely. But that's the point of international trade. It's a point that Donald Trump doesn't understand that it's in the interest of both parties. Because otherwise it wouldn't happen. I mean, that's
well. I don't know whether you saw his cabinet meeting yesterday, which was quite thrilling and interesting in and of itself. Because I don't think I've ever watched an American cabinet meeting, which seemed to involve an awful lot of people sitting around a big table, telling him how great he was and how well they were doing, which was fine. But it was as an exercise in just how that sort of thing happens in America. It was very interesting because he also was quite conciliatory about an awful lot of the tariffs that he's been putting on. He started talking about the number of countries that have come now to the table who want to basically not have tariffs, and so they want to lift them all altogether. I think, just before we go to a clip of it, the FTSE 100 has opened up 0.64% today, up 7,964.10. I'm not even going to bother saying how that's going to go because nobody knows. But here's Trump talking about his cabinet meeting and his tariffs.
Everyone at this table is doing an incredible job, by the way, I have to say. Incredible. And the relationships it's like they're friends. There's really, the relationships are very strong, really good, really strong. And these meetings are very good. And I think, I don't believe there's any other president that allowed the press to come into a meeting such as this. These are very sacred meetings. These are very private meetings. But we have nothing to hide. And I think it's good. I think it's a good, we want to be, a word you like to use, Jeff, is transparent. So we want to be transparent.
I think it's a great precedent to set for old Keir Starmer. I'd like to have a look at one of the next Keir Starmer cabinet meeting, but it wouldn't be as entertaining.
Well, no, but they do have the cameras in at the beginning of cabinet meetings sometimes, and
they take pictures of all sitting there, but you don't actually get to watch it. I was able to watch that for like an hour and a half yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't just a welcome to the cabinet having a meeting. This is the first time they've actually said. Because I sort of was on the phone. I was absent-mindedly watching TV, and then I thought it's a press conference. Then I realised, it's not a press conference. He's actually going around the table asking every single person in charge of whatever they're in charge of, including Elon Musk, by the way, how they were getting on.
Well, that is extraordinary, and no way to conduct government business, in my view. You can't do that in front of the TV cameras. You've got to be able to have a frank conversation. I mean, that's the whole point of
of course.
But
you wouldn't expect to be giving cameras to every single meeting that you have. But I think as an exercise in democracy, I thought it was rather good.
No, I think you've fallen for the spin, Mike.
You think? That's not like you to say you've fallen for the spin, John. I mean, let's not mention Alistair Campbell, shall we? Your hero.
Well, Alistair Campbell tried to open up government, but Tony Blair deeply regretted passing the Freedom of Information Act because he thought that that's not actually the best way to conduct efficient government.
No, but the genius of the Freedom of Information Act is that you can't actually get information out of it because they can answer your question by saying, well, we're terribly sorry, but this would cost far too much to research, so we're not going to answer that one. Or, I'm afraid your question isn't specific enough, so you'll have to get more specific in order for us to be able to answer it. And so the wheel goes round and round and round, and everybody thinks we're better off, but we're not actually.
Well, and it also wastes an awful lot of officials' time.
Speaking of that, can I ask you about the number of people working in the Cabinet Office? I discovered this yesterday. They're getting rid of 2,100 people. 900 of them, I think, are going to actually lose their jobs. The others are going to be relocated. That still leaves another 4,000.
I shared your surprise.
What on earth are they all doing?
I thought there cannot be as many as 2,000 people working in the Cabinet Office. It's extraordinary.
But it turns out there's 6,000 of them.
No, absolutely. It is extraordinary. It's something that started under Gordon Brown, strangely enough, because when he became Prime Minister, he was extremely surprised to come from an extremely powerful department like the Treasury. Yeah. He was extremely surprised to find that there was basically nobody in Number 10. Right. And he thought, well, this is no good. I need my own staff. So he started filling up the Cabinet Office, which backs onto Number 10, and using that as a sort of Prime Minister's department. Right. And it's ballooned since then.
Well, it certainly has ballooned. I mean, because you can understand how they could get to 1,000, maybe, but 6,000 seems outrageously large, doesn't it? I mean, because in terms of each individual minister, they've all got also their own department. So it's not as if you just need one Cabinet Office who does everything. You've got the Cabinet Office that kind of allocates everything, haven't you?
Well, the point. The reasoning for Gordon Brown was that he wanted a strong wanted a strong grip from the centre, and he thought number 10 was too small to do that.
No, I get that, but even then, if you can't handle everybody else with about 1,000 people, you're probably not doing it right.
Well, that's what I would have thought. Yes.
Yes, absolutely right. Let's talk about the grooming gang story, because lots of interesting news this morning about Starmer facing a bit of a rebellion, and part of that rebellion coming from Blue Labour. And the guy that started Blue Labour apparently is very unhappy about this kind of what he sees as a U-turn and a watering down of what Labour said they would do. And the reason it's important, I think, is because this guy is Lord Glassman, I think his name is supposed to be quite close to our friend Morgan McSweeney, who, of course, is very key to whatever Starmer does.
Well, I'm not sure about Lord Glassman being that important, but no, I think Labour.
If he's McSweeney's mate, he's quite important, isn't he?
Well, I don't think he is, though. I mean, I think there is there's some Blue Labour type thinking going on, and there is quite a lot of bluish Labour MPs. There's a group of them called Blue Labour, who talk a lot of sense, I think, on a lot of issues. I'm afraid this isn't one of them. I think I agree with Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. The important thing is to have the police investigations resourced properly, so that these people are put behind bars. I don't think there's much advantage to be gained by spending vast amounts of public money on public inquiries. I've always been against public.
I know you don't like public inquiries, but the problem with just leaving it to the police and the local sort of authority is that the police and the local authority in a lot of these cases were implicated as part of the problem, and so they've been investigated themselves.
That's what you and a lot of conspiracy theorists online
No.
say.
It's nothing to do with that. People have been convicted of crimes. People have been arrested and charged with crimes because they were in the police at the time and because they were committing crimes at the time. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, okay. So, but if we know that they've been arrested and put in jail, then that is the right result. I don't think a public inquiry adds anything to the to the securing of justice. I think.
So the next time there's a public inquiry about anything else, then we'll just assume that you don't think they should have it.
Well, in almost every case, yes. I mean, this COVID inquiry. I mean, how many millions and millions of pounds?
Well, that's a waste of time.
And discovering absolutely nothing of any importance or interest.
But no that's because they're not asking the right question
for the future pandemic. Yeah, but Mike, this is the problem. People call for public inquiries because they're not satisfied with what the police or the existing authorities have done, and then they expect the public inquiry to do something different. And when it doesn't, they say it's a whitewash.
Well, and a cover-up, which is what Dan Hodges is now calling it. He said when it started, when Elon Musk started asking questions about all of this, it sounded like it was a conspiracy theory. He wrote a piece in the Mail yesterday saying that he now believes that that's not true and that it actually is not a conspiracy theory. It is the biggest cover-up and possibly one of the biggest political scandals in Britain. So I think it's in a slightly different category from every other public inquiry that should be had, and that's why so many people want to see it happening.
Yeah, but your faith that public inquiry is somehow going to produce the result that you think is the right result is touching, Mike, because public inquiries never do. Public inquiries always end up being very much focused on the facts, and they don't provide the sorts of findings that the people who feel most strongly about whatever's gone wrong want it to find.
But that's possibly because the people...
That's just life.
Well, it's the nature of government, because they're doing a public inquiry into something that they know will not really result in anything much of any value to the rest of the country.
But in that case, why waste your breath calling for a public inquiry?
Because if it was up to me, if it was up to me, John, I would make sure that the people running the inquiry actually did want to find something out and actually didn't want to just go through the motions like Chilcot, like the COVID inquiry, like most governmental inquiries, because the government, in the end, doesn't really want to discover things that might be embarrassing, and particularly a Labour government which doesn't want to find things that might be embarrassing about complicit Labour behaviour in councils and in certain MPs' constituencies. And it's as simple as that, really, and you can admit it or not, but it's true.
Well, I don't agree. So, and I don't agree.
It's not a question of agreement.
I don't agree.
It's not a question of agreement.
Elon Musk's intervention in this has been extremely ill-informed and unhelpful. And
I don't agree with that either, because if it wasn't for Elon Musk, they wouldn't have. Labour were sweeping it so far under the carpet. They were hoping nobody would ever mention it again. And the only reason
that is absolutely not true.
Do you not find it slightly? All right, let me ask you another question. Don't you find it slightly hypocritical of Jess Phillips, a woman who's prided herself on the protection of women and girls, seemingly now is uninterested in the protection of women and girls because these things are still going on? No. These things are still going on, and she's not interested.
And they're still being investigated. So don't get in the way of the investigations.
Oh, especially if the police
by calling for public inquiries,
especially if the police are. But why do they want a local inquiry if they don't think that there's any need for an inquiry?
Well, because the public pressure has been so great.
Well, what's the point of a local inquiry then?
Well, what's the point of? I mean, I don't agree with public inquiries. So
you don't think there should be any inquiry?
Unless
why does Labour think there should be?
What the problem is that has to be
but you've tied yourself up there, I'm afraid, John.
I haven't.
Because you've said you don't believe in a public inquiry, but now you don't want to criticise Labour for ordering a local inquiry.
Well, because they want people to be satisfied that things have been done.
So why not do a public inquiry then?
Well, because I think it's a waste of time and money. But
it's not a waste of time and money for them.
If it will satisfy people, which it won't.
But hang on, you're saying so it's not a waste of time and money to do a local inquiry?
No, I think it is. I think.
So you don't think they should be doing a local inquiry either?
No.
So Starmer's got it wrong again?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we got to that point then. What do you think is going to happen next on the migrants crisis? Because we've got stories today of the French apparently giving life jackets to migrants so that they can come on halfway across the pond and then suddenly they get picked up by border force, at which point they take the life jackets back. So they're effectively helping them come across. There's no sign that the small boats crisis is going to get anything other than worse as the weather gets better. There's no sign that Labour are putting migrants in anything other than more hotels, and there's no sign that we're deporting more people after that initial batch of 20,000 or whatever it was. The whole thing is worse than ever, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly worse figures this year for crossings. Than any previous year, and no, you're right. No sign that the government's getting to grips with it. There was a brief, helpful signal from the French a few weeks back, suggesting that they might actually try and pick people up and take them back to France when they're in French waters. And there was even a suggestion from one French minister that they might think about accepting returns, accepting. The UK sending them back to France, but of course I don't think that's going to happen, and I think you're right. It's going to get worse, and Labour are going to end up in exactly the same place as the previous Tory government, which is coming up with schemes which are extremely difficult for Liberals to accept. Because they're going to need some kind of deterrent, and they haven't got it at the moment.
Well, they haven't, but they're making a lot of noises at the moment, which if the noises had been made by the Tories even 2 years ago, they would have been absolutely shouting from the rooftops that it was ghastly, 1930s style, Nazi Germany-like behaviour. But they seem to have turned the boat round on that one. But don't worry, because we've got a theme park coming, and we had a lot of fun this week with that, wondering what sorts of rides there would be, and there were things like the migrant slalom. And get on a train which doesn't actually get to its destination because it's like HS2, it's 10 miles short, the kind of thing. We had the Mike Amesbury boxing booth, all sorts of things, the Angela Rayner Hall of Mirrors. This is never going to happen, is it?
What, the theme park in Bedford?
Yeah.
I don't see why not. It sounds like a great idea. I mean, one of the things that...
Well, it wasn't their idea for a start, was it?
Who, the Labour government?
Yeah.
No, look, you don't want government deciding.
No, but I mean, it was the Tories that had allocated the land. It was the Tories that did the deal with the company some years ago. It was 2023 when they announced that they were going to actually launch a theme park in that part of Bedfordshire.
Yeah. But this government actually seems to have got to move on and approved it, which is a good thing.
No, it was approved in 2023. They've now sort of moved it on to say that they've agreed to put it into play, and they're going to start looking at a timetable. But they don't actually know when it's going to be built and if it's ever going to be built.
I thought we did have a date. I thought it was sort of like 2031 or something. But no, I mean, I'm glad the government's getting on.
Yeah, but there's no. They say that it will be done by 2031, but there's no date for when they actually start building it.
Oh, right.
And somebody said to me yesterday, why does it take 6 years to build a theme park?
But it takes a long time in Britain to build anything. I mean, but that.
Well, that's the other thing. We've got the coal problem as well. Coal being brought in from foreign lands, Japan and China, because we don't have any coal now to keep British Steel going, which is actually owned by China.
And we refused permission for that coking coal mine in Wales.
Yes,
which was, and people made the point at the time that if you don't produce your own coking coal, then you're going to be importing it from elsewhere, unless
which doesn't sound very green.
Unless you turn the entire steel industry electric. Yeah. Which is just not economic.
Well, it's not. Yeah, but this is the thing. I said this to somebody yesterday. If you're going to turn a steel furnace that seems to work reasonably well and make steel that's pretty good into an electric furnace which doesn't work as well and doesn't make such good steel, it's not an economically viable model. Why do it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Excellent. We agree more. Somebody suggested to me, how about in the theme park, amongst all the other things, we have a John Rentoul, It's Not a Story exhibition.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You could have, I remember going to Blackpool as a child, and they had Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. You could have one of those. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rentoul's Believe It or Not Story Museum. Be quite funny. Anyway, delightful to talk to you as ever, John. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the sunshine. Have a good weekend. Let's get a voice note from Ian on Lawless Britain.
Hi, great show as usual. Listening to you talking to Isabel about crime UK, and she points out this government's to blame, complicit, whatever. But unfortunately, it's not just this government, it's the last governments, it's the Tory governments as well, where all governments for the last, well, including Blair, really, have let crime slide, and they haven't been bothered to do anything about it. All of our politicians are complicit in this, and they should hang their heads in shame.
I very much agree with you, Ian. I don't think there's any government lately that you could ever point to say they did a good thing. I mean, any good thing that was done was Boris Johnson getting us out of the European Union, but then not really finishing the job properly. That's the problem. Linda says this from, is it Wootton? Whilst walking my dog, I saw this man unscrew the lid on his water bottle, stamp on it, make it flat out, the lid back on it, and I was thinking, that's a good idea, as I thought he was going to be putting it in a bin. No, how wrong I was. He neatly posted it into the drain. Such mindless behaviour. How many more do this? Is it an educational problem, or do they get a kick out of this unbelievable stupidity? Where do you report such behaviour? I thought better to tackle him, as I'm never sure what I might get back. Well, I don't know, Linda. You seem to be saying that you've seen somebody take the lid off their bottle cap, break it off, which I didn't think you could even do, chuck it down a drain. Yeah, it does seem ridiculous, doesn't it? This sums up Britain, says Sue from Chelmsford. White girls can't get justice and white boys and girls can't join the police force. Indeed. I've just made an official report of a crime against me to West Yorkshire Police, says Ross. I applied for a police officer's job around 2 months ago and was unsuccessful. I've now reported a serious crime of racism by the West Yorkshire Police Force. Well, let's see how you get on with that one. Growth in February, really? I don't believe the figures, says Jackie. Well, there really isn't any. 0.5%. Might as well be nothing at all. Because it really registers as zero on the old Richter scale of growth. 25 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory.
Firstly, this has happened in 50 towns. So 5 local inquiries is going to potentially give partial answers to 5 of those towns, but what about the other 45? Secondly, local inquiries have no statutory basis, which means they can't compel witnesses and they can't compel evidence. So of course, if you are a councillor or a council official who's been complicit in these horrible crimes and you can't be compelled to go to an inquiry, you're not going to go.
What a surprise, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I've consistently called since being elected the Member of Parliament here back in 2019 for an inquiry across the Bradford district. Why? Because I fear that the scale of the issue of gang rape, child sexual exploitation will far dwarf that in the scale of Rotherham, Rochdale.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:28. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Alex Phillips will be here then. It's a big weekend. It's the 250th anniversary show, by the way, of Plank of the Week tonight at 7. When I say 250th anniversary, it's the 250th show, is what I mean. We're not 250 years old, obviously. That would be mad, and completely in keeping with the way this week has actually gone in terms of news coverage. Speaking of which, let's talk to David Henning, Director of the UK Trade Policy Project, the European Centre for International Political Economy. That's a very long title, that, David. Very good morning to you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's
it is
okay.
a bit long, takes up a bit too much of your time, but fire away.
No, listen, very important matters to discuss, of course. I mean, who knows where all this tariff business is going? You know, one minute there's tariffs being put on by America, the next minute they're being suspended, the next minute they're being put back on again, there's negotiations going on. I mean, where do you think it's all going to end and when? I mean, I know we've got 90 days, but what do you reckon?
Well, I hoped you'd know, actually, but unfortunately...
Well, I can give you what I think will happen, but, I mean, I prefer to get your view first.
Look, President Trump, he believes in tariffs. He doesn't particularly believe in trade. He's gonna keep going on his path, but and he's surrounded by people who let him do what he wants. But the financial markets don't want him to do that, and some of the political folk are getting a bit twitchy about it. So he's going to have to pull back a little bit on what he does. At the moment, he's focusing mostly on China, but you know what? This is President Trump. He could easily, in a few days' time or a few months' time, say, actually, I've done a deal with China. Only I could have done that deal. Yeah. I'm the supremo. So what I will confidently predict is whatever happens in the US, President Trump will claim it's all part of the plan all the way along, and also he will try to avoid the worst of a stock market crash. That's why he paused. Yeah. But I think he will carry on with quite a lot of tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that certainly everybody who is coming to the US to try and do a deal is hoping that the tariffs will disappear and that they will have some kind of level playing field. But I mean, there have been a lot of tariffs. I mean, it's like the way some people are covering this story, it's as though nobody had any tariffs on anybody before Donald Trump suddenly became president for the second time. I mean, even the EU are now saying they're going to take a little pause and see if they can have a conversation with Trump to get a decent deal. So, I mean, presumably at the end of the day, once all of the sort of madness has passed, we'll all kind of calm down again and revert back to normal and just carry on doing other things.
Well, if you remember Trump's first term, the madness never quite passes. You know, he likes to keep us on his toes. He's, he's running a show here, and tariffs are part of the show. So don't expect it to get completely calm. It will get a bit more so. And other countries, countries, the EU, China, they're all going to say, look, we'll look after our own interests, but if you want to talk, we'll talk as well. And I think that's the way to deal with Trump trying to put on a show. Is that's your show. That's not our show. We've got our own economies to run. We'll do what we need to do for our economies. If the two happen to come together, that's great. Let's talk. If not, carry on running your show.
Yeah. I mean, what's the reaction been in Europe from the companies themselves? Because I mean, obviously, the main concern, I would imagine, for some of the European countries is car manufacturing, where 25% of a tariff still remains, as far as I'm aware. If you're a German car manufacturer that sells a lot of cars into the US, you've got to be worried about that, presumably.
Yeah, it depends on the company, because some companies have some pretty good operations into the US, so they're less affected. Some export almost entirely from Europe into the US. They're going to be more affected. They're worried. This is just to remind folk, this is the 25% tariff on automotive and the 25% tariff on steel and aluminium and goods made from it. both of those affect car makers going into the US. The only thing to be said about it is that it affects all countries. So at this stage, no one country has an advantage over any other in terms of their car exports. Prices will probably go up in the US, and US car makers are not suddenly going to displace European cars. What people would be really worried about is if, for example, Japan gets a deal to reduce that, or, you know, the EU gets a deal, the UK doesn't. Whoever gets a deal wins, maybe. Whoever doesn't win. So you can imagine Trump being pretty happy about people coming to him and sort of basically asking for that deal on cars.
And as you say, some European car makers have factories in America as well, don't they?
Yes, so I think BW's long had a factory there. I mean, in the UK, you know, JLR is the worst hit because it doesn't have a factory in the US. It relies on exporting entirely from the West Midlands into the US. Everything gets hit by that 25%. But then the UK is a bit luckier because we export premium vehicles mostly to the US, and they're a little bit less price sensitive. Right. It's the folk who are exporting the mass market cars, some in Germany, a lot in Japan and Korea. They are really kind of worrying about the impact of this, and they will be trying to get their governments to do deals, or some will be trying to get retaliation. I don't think I'm not sure Trump is that. You know, he talks about retaliation, but I don't think it really works anyway in any respect.
No, I mean, in the end, the people mostly in this country just care about the price of things here. You know, and if prices go up in this country for things that they would normally buy, they would worry about that. But I don't see many people buying all of the things that come in. Supposedly, people buy stuff that comes in. I mean, if you like bourbon, you're going to buy bourbon. You're not going to stop buying it because it's gone up by a couple of quid, are you?
Well, actually, I mean, there is a bit of an impact. So when there were some tariffs on Scotch in the US a few years ago, the consumption does go down because people go to the supermarket. What am I going to have tonight? Am I going to have bourbon? Am I going to have whiskey or whatever? So they may make a choice. The tariffs do affect it, but the UK is not going to retaliate at the moment. It shouldn't affect UK prices too much. In the US, it will affect their prices, and that's one of the things to be watching in the US is stuff is going to be getting more expensive there. They're starting to talk about Main Street being affected. Let's see whether that feeds through into the politics of this as well.
Yeah, we shall see. Good to talk to you, David. Thanks very much indeed. David Henning there, Director of the UK Trade Policy Project, European Centre for International Political Economy. As I said, quite a long title. Much ado about nothing then, by the sounds of it, because, I mean, you know, you might be interested in whether or not people are paying more money for stuff in America, but why would you care? You know, I don't care if prices in America go up. And neither should you. It's time for a gaff, though. Here's Jeremy Kyle.
With him leaving, presented a unique set of circumstances. Excuse me.
But Rupert Bell is about to pass out live on Drive.
On track here for a unique set of circumstances for the Home Office.
Oh dear. Rupert, of course, recovered, you'll be pleased to know. Let's get a voice note from Adrian.
Just a very quick one. We do seem to have activist judges now. They have them in America and certainly across Europe as well, who seem to be applying political views rather than actually upholding the law and looking after the land. I believe in the UK it's the King and the Lord Chancellor who is empowered to remove these. So what are these two people doing? Why aren't we clearing out the judges who are clearly working against the British interest? Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a very good thought, Adrian, and I think I would welcome that intrusion into what it is that these two people are doing, because they ought to be investigating it. David says, this morning, Mike, what is happening to our great country? The mamby-pamby lawyers all need replacing with people that have sense. We really need to get rid of this ECHR and get back to a country we could be proud of and be looked up to again. I mean, this is it. I mean, it's always a bad idea to have too many lawyers. I mean, one of the problems I encountered when I lived in America for 10 years was that you couldn't do anything without a lawyer. All right. Every time you moved, you had to do a lawyer. You want to rent a property, you have to have a lawyer. You want to rent an office space, you have to have a lawyer. You want to employ somebody, you have to have a lawyer. All the contracts have to be read by lawyers. You know, everything is kind of stymied by the legal profession, all of whom, of course, take a cut out of everything that you do. You know, I've had two situations in America. One, when I was trying to buy a flat, where the lawyer nearly kiboshed the deal because he was refusing to negotiate on a particular subject which he hadn't even consulted me on. And similarly with an office space that I rented, where we nearly lost an office space because he was getting so horrible. My lawyer was getting stuck into the lawyer from the other side about what we wanted and what we were going to be asked to pay. And I said, hang on a minute, I want this office space. What are you doing? You know, why are you having a row about it? You know, you're not getting me anywhere. All you're doing is giving me more of a bill for spending more of your time working on the story and the office space I don't want you to work on. I just want you to sign the bleeding document. This from Michelle in Altrincham. Why don't they deploy the army armed with guns to stand in shops? That would put an end to the stealing. Yeah, it's called martial law, that. You could do that. I'm not sure we've quite reached that point. Maybe it would help, though. It's 8:37.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:38 or 8:39 actually. Welcome back. We've got lots of you talking about shoplifting here. Toffee in Oswestry says, "Morning, Mike. My son manages a shop, predominantly male staff, and I just asked him if he saw someone shoplifting, would he stop them? His answer was, hell yes, we would floor him. I asked, aren't you scared of being hurt? Nope, he said. If we all let this continue without stopping it, then the problem escalates. If I have to pay for it, so should they." He did used to be a police officer, and he left that profession when it stopped being a profession. Well, that's the thing. You know, I mean, Emma Wolf was talking about this morning, and she said, well, you know, they're not being paid very much money. Other people have pointed this out, getting paid £13 an hour to be a security officer. Why would you risk getting hurt? Well, because if you're a security officer, that's your job, I'm afraid, isn't it? Morning, Mike, says John in Deal in Kent. Just wanted to pick up on shoplifting. I work for one of the big supermarkets, and where I work in Canterbury, almost all of our shoplifters are children, and not just taking one or two things, but complete boxes of stuff. They know there is no consequence, and I totally blame the parents for total lack of respect and upbringing. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Mike, we need to start naming and shaming shoplifters, says Mark in Selby. Nearly all shops have CCTV, so start putting the faces of thieves out there and not fear the backlash from human rights lawyers. I think that's good. Absolutely right. Gary in Shrewsbury. Morning, Mike. I'd just like to say fair play and congratulations to Talk for highlighting everything you're talking about today and every otother day. I listened to the BBC last night just to see what they were up to, and all they talk about is Trump's tariffs. They're absolutely obsessed with trying to portray him as an evil dictator. Great show. Well, this is why we don't do that, because we've got many, many more important things that worry more important people here in the United Kingdom, like the last conversation I had with the bloke about the tariffs from the European, whatever it was. He wants to tell me that, you know, prices might go up in America. Well, so what? I don't really care. Let's talk about things that are happening here, like, for example, people burning their own bins in Birmingham. I mean, you know, Birmingham, as I'm now calling it. B-U-R-N, of course. Let's talk to Arnold Tarling, who's a fire safety expert, because I'm pretty sure burning your own rubbish is illegal. First of all, Arnold, very good morning to you. And if it's not illegal, it's certainly not a very good idea, is it?
Well, certainly not. You know, they have a Clean Air Act up in Birmingham at the moment, as they do in London and other places, but that's only in regards to smoke coming out of chimneys.
Right.
But you don't want to be burning materials, particularly plastics and rubber and materials like that, because of the dioxins and phthalates and volatile organic compounds which come out, which are very detrimental to your health.
Yes. And if, particularly if you're standing anywhere near it.
Oh, yeah, yes. If you're near it, and people who particularly suffer from lung problems or asthma, they're going to really be suffering if people are burning their rubbish. The main problem we have is that the amount of food which is being thrown out along with the rubbish, which is attracting the vermin, the foxes, the rats, the mice, cockroaches and the like. You know, we've got another means of disposal for food waste, down the toilet pan. Clean it out, you know, providing it's not large bones or bits and pieces like that which will clog the drainage. You know, most of it you can actually put down there.
Isn't that going to block the drains, though?
Only small things. You know, your ordinary food waste, you know, your scraps, make sure it's all mashed up in small pieces. You know, there's no reason why not. It's the big bits that you don't want going down there.
Because, I mean, I can only one thing worse than Birmingham and their bin crisis would be to have a sort of sewage crisis to go along with it. And so they wouldn't be able to use the toilets either. You might as well just give up.
Yeah, you separate out the oils and the fats. You can put the fats which congeal into tins and put them to one side. The oils can go back into bottles, so you don't dispose of that. And then they're pretty well inert.
Right.
You know, there's lots of things one can do. The tins and everything you can separate. And I'm sure the totters would come around, or tatters as they call them in some places, and take the metal that you've got there, and you can separate a lot of the waste out.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it, that in this day and age of recycling and everything being separated out, we've actually got a bin crisis, because it doesn't seem to me that people are saying, all right, well, let's take the food waste somewhere else, because that's obviously what's causing all the problems with the vermin. But you can leave, say, the bottles and the cardboard and the paper. I mean, if you had, for example, an incinerator in your back garden in Birmingham, could you burn paper? Could you burn cardboard, for example?
Yes, well, paper and cardboard, but you can burn timber, wood, bits and pieces. You can burn, providing it's not been treated with any chemicals or painted, because again you're getting into a very nasty mix.
Right.
But again, it's the particulates which are coming out from the fire which will affect people with breathing problems.
Sure. But is it actually legal, though, to have a fire in your back garden? If you wanted to have, you know, a bonfire, or buy one of those incinerators from one of the garden centres which are selling them here, because I was under the impression that you can't actually burn anything without permission from the local council.
My understanding is you can burn within reason. It's certain products which you're not allowed to burn and shouldn't be, and that's coming back to the rubber, the plastics, the paints, the treated timbers and bits and pieces.
It's kind of common sense, that, isn't it? I mean, you have to be pretty stupid to think you can burn rubber and plastic.
Well, you'd be amazed by how many people chuck silly things into fires.
I know. I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of stupid people in the world. But so, I mean, obviously you're not going to recommend that they do it, but I mean, if there is still this problem, because we're entering a second month now, although some parts of Birmingham haven't had proper bin collection since the beginning of January. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like. We had a lorry driver pass by Birmingham yesterday. He said he was out on the M6, M42 kind of link-up road, and he said you could smell it. It smelled like you know, those sort of rubbish tips that you find in foreign countries. It just smelled awful.
Yeah, that's basically the food stuffs which are out there, which are rotting down and, you know, attracting the vermin. You know, deal with the food products. You know, if you've got large bones and stuff, maybe put them on top of a small fire so that it then won't attract the vermin when you put it out. But, you know, the general scraps you've got on your plates, that can go down the toilet, providing it's not in large lumps.
Right, okay.
You know, mash it up a bit and dispose of it that way.
Yeah, and so you're not. I mean, I'm assuming you're not going to recommend that people have fires in the back garden, but if you do, just do it sensibly and don't be an idiot.
Do it sensibly. Make sure it's dry material that you're burning, so you don't produce so much smoke. If you are definitely going to be doing it, but you know, it's difficult times on this. But the inert materials, the things which aren't going to smell, the things that aren't going to separate them out, bag them up, and put them somewhere where they can be collected at the end of it. It's purely the foods and the stuff like that which people aren't thinking about. You know, you've got maybe you've got out-of-date bottles of jam and stuff which has gone fungusy. Mix it up with some hot water, bits and pieces, flush it down the sink, flush it down your toilet. It won't congeal again. Right. And you've got rid of the things which attract the vermin.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I'm not sure. I'm not buying into this idea of putting everything down the toilet. What about here's one for you.
Not everything. Not everything.
No, I know. No, I know. Listen, I know you're being very reasonable here, but I just know from what people are like. You know, they'll be sort of chucking chickens down there and stuff. You know, but I mean,
not the bone.
The other problem you're going to have, right, is the weather service. The Met Office has put out a wildfire warning, right, because it's going to be quite warm today, quite warm this weekend. Yeah, would you have to be concerned about starting a wildfire if you put a fire up in the backyard?
Well, you've got that in the backyard. You've also got spontaneous combustion from the amount of rubbish which has been dumped with plenty of oxygen around it. You know, particularly when it's become wet and damp inside it. And then you will.
It could actually go on fire, couldn't it?
Without anyone throwing a match on it.
Could it actually spontaneously combust then?
Yeah, yes. You know, rubbish will combust if it's got the right conditions and the heat on top of damp materials.
Right.
You know, even if you have, let's say you've done washing and you've piled that all up on top of each other, that can end up combusting. I've had situations with sort of hotels which do their own cleaning, which fires caused by spontaneous combustion in their laundry.
Blimey. There's a lot to think about there. Arnold, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your help. Very, very helpful indeed. Fire safety expert Arnold Tarley says, yes, you can burn rubbish in your back garden as long as it's reasonable. Sorry, it's not funny, this. It really is not funny. And as long as it's paper or cardboard, right? Don't use any accelerants, obviously, and be careful for not starting a wildfire. Which might start anyway, apparently, because of the rubbish that's outside. So it's could be quite a long, smelly weekend in Birmingham, I'm afraid. If you've got anything to say, listen, anything you can offer us here, let us know what it's like where you are. We'd love to hear from you. Let's get a voice note from Lee.
Hello, Mike. It's Lee from Bexley Heath. When you was mentioning the tax on motorists this morning, you left out the Blackwall Tunnel, which after being over 100 years free to use for all motorists, the rat that's in charge of London has decided to charge working people to go through it each way every time. Now, these are not people going on holiday or going on a pleasure drive through the Blackwall Tunnel. These are people going to work. It's absolutely disgusting. War on the working class again. I think I'm going to try and become a mayor of London myself. Then if I get voted in, I'll charge £100 a day to go in and out of his road and exempt everyone else in the road apart from him. All right, mate. Good show. See you later. Bye.
Lee, thanks very much indeed. I actually did mention the Blackwall Tunnel being given a toll because there's two tunnels now. The Silvertown Tunnel, Blackwall Tunnel. I mentioned them earlier this week. I did mention it today as well. They've both got a toll on them now. So it's going to cost about £4, is my understanding. Every time, it's not just a daily charge, it's every time you go through. So if you go through one way and then back the other way, it's £8. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And as you say, Lee, there's never been a toll on that tunnel before. Vivian from Liverpool says, oh, Mike, food down the toilet. Oh, my God, that guy shouldn't be allowed on talk. Worst suggestion I've ever heard. I didn't think it sounded like a good idea. And food waste down the toilet, that's the worst advice you give to the whole of Birmingham. There is no way the sewage system could cope. Well, he's a fire expert, to be fair. He's not a sewage expert. And he did say, only small things. So I think, don't start shoving everything down there. I think you've got to be quite sensible about these things. But, it sounds like a nightmare. Coming up, Will Geddes is here. I want to talk about Prince Harry's security. So worried about his own security, he went to a war zone. You go figure. There's the talk.
this has happened in 50 towns. So 5 local inquiries is going to potentially give partial answers to 5 of those towns, but what about the other 45? Secondly, local inquiries have no statutory basis, which means they can't compel witnesses and they can't compel evidence. So, of course, if you are a councillor or a council official who's been complicit in these horrible crimes and you can't be compelled to go to an inquiry, you're not going to go.
What a surprise, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I've consistently called since being elected the Member of Parliament here back in 2019 for a inquiry across the Bradford district. Why? Because I fear that the scale of the issue of gang rape, child sexual exploitation will far dwarf that in the scale of Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, and where else we've had. And therefore been campaigning on this, but we have not had any reassurance at all from the government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. We're almost in the final hour of the show. We're going to talk about Prince Harry now. He's on the front pages of all the papers this morning. After his time in court yesterday, battling for more security for his trips to London so that he could feel safe to bring his wife and kids here, he decided to go off to a war zone. This is after saying that he was worried that his fate was in our hands because there was a danger to his life. Will Geddes is here, security specialist, of course. Will, very good morning.
Morning, Mike.
So,
excellent show as always, sir.
Yeah, I mean, what is going on here? Because first of all, we wanted to talk to you just about what his requirements are in terms of what he's asking for in the High Court. He's in a court of appeal, so he's already lost it once. He's having another go, wasting taxpayers' money. And suddenly, at the end of it, he up sticks and heads off to Ukraine. Doesn't apparently tell the Royal Buckingham Palace protection people. It's not clear whether he told the Foreign Office either.
No, and to be honest, Mike, you couldn't really make it up. I mean, considering obviously the argument he's trying to put across to say his life is obviously at risk or a heightened level of risk, and then going to Lviv, and okay, you know, the Foreign Commonwealth Office put Lviv down as basically only to travel to for essential business. One's got to question how that resonates in the wake of him obviously being here in London, and also the pantomime that happened yesterday, as I'm sure you heard, Mike, with someone from the public gallery shouting out, and his close protection, who, to be honest, if I'd been on his team, I would have been somewhat embarrassed to be herding him straight out of the court because there was a potential risk, which ultimately turned out to be one of his supporters anyway. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's all a bit ridiculous. And certainly in terms of what he wants, you know, he's rejected the royal family. He's rejected his royal duties. Why should he get a free ride?
Well, quite. And, I mean, he's also wasting an awful lot of taxpayers' money, and I'm hoping that at the end of all this, he gets the bill for it, because I don't see why we should be paying for his constant whining and whinging and sort of appeal after appeal after appeal. And when he walks around, by the way, he seems to have a fair amount of protection. I mean, in your understanding of the business, I mean, he's got about 5 or 6 guys around him there, hasn't he?
Yeah, and many of those guys are his former royalty and specialist protection officers who looked after him when he was with the royal family. So, you know, he has got a very good security team from what I understand. I've got very good friends within RASP, as they call it, the Royalty and Specialist Protection Team. And those individuals, you know, they would be extending, obviously, the courtesy. His argument in court is that he doesn't have access to inside intelligence. He doesn't have access to the Home Office in terms of the risk assessment of his visits to the United Kingdom, which, you know, literally the last time he was here was back in 2024. It's not like he's over here on a regular basis. And he's not over here doing anything for the royal family. He's doing it for his own personal needs. Now, his security, yes, it will be expensive, and that's what he's bulking at, that when he does come here, he needs to have security. However, RAVEC, the overall group which risk assesses each of the royal family members, they're the executive committee of royalty and people of profile committee. So they will look at each individual case and they'll suggest what they have. And I know for a fact that he will have an officer attached to his security team when he comes over here who will coordinate, obviously, his logistics, his journey management to make sure that he is not at risk. And, sorry, Mike, just to add to that, you know, if he is visiting members of the royal family, then he gets all the collateral benefit of all the security that they have as well.
Which, of course, he chose not to do this time, as he did last time when he came in. And it presumably would also be a safer bet for him if he was to take up the offer of perhaps what his father has offered him in the past, you know, a place to stay on the royal estate, which is a lot easier to protect than a room at Claridge's.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it, and that's really what it's coming down to. You know, the bill for him, I'm estimating probably per year, with the number of jolly jaunts that he goes on, whether it be to Liev or anywhere else for that matter, probably costing him close on to about $5 million a year. Now, we bear in mind how much money him and his wife are making. They've got more than enough money. I mean, I know people, certainly people in the public eye, very well-known household names that I've looked after, who will go, you know what, Will, I'm going to walk down Kensington High Street, or I'm going to walk through the City of London on my own, without attention. And there are a lot of Hollywood stars who come over here who don't want, you know, close protection. They don't want executive protection. They want to do it on their own. So Harry is really over-egging this. And I feel sorry for his security team because they're probably doing a really good job. And added to which, I've taken clients into hostile environments, a heck of a lot more risky than Lviv, and we haven't even been armed. And he would set a very dangerous precedent that if the Home Office or the royal family pay for his protection, then ultimately that opens up the whole channels for everybody else that may say, oh, I need security as well.
Yeah, it does start to get very expensive. And finally, Will, I mean, you know, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, went off to watch a football match for his favourite team, Aston Villa, getting slaughtered by PSG. But, you know, that didn't seem to cause any kind of upset at all. I'm sure he had protection, but it wasn't, you know, he sat in the crowd. He wasn't treated like a special VIP. You know, he spoke to football pundits afterwards very well and all of that. You know, why can't his brother just be more like him?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, again, the lower the profile, the lower the risk. You know, there could be specific intelligence. And I'm sure if there was specific intelligence, Mike, for one of his visits to the UK that said, yes, there is a heightened risk against you, then, of course, they're going to attach security. The Met Police, RASP, RAVEC are not going to want to embarrass themselves on the world stage. We have a great reputation for protecting principals and members of the royal family. So, and one of the things with the RASP guys is they're very low profile, very discreet. You wouldn't even know that they were there unless you were looking for them. So, you know,
right. Well, listen, we got to let you go. Sorry, thank you very much indeed. We're just hitting the end of the show. Could be news coming up very shortly. Coming up, Robbie Moore MP. We'll talk more about grooming gangs.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 9. The sun is up, the sky's blue. It's going to be a lovely day today, by the way. I know that many of you will be listening and watching in other parts of the country where it's not quite as warm, but certainly in the southeast it's going to be above 22, 23, something like that. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be gorgeous. But of course, it's not going to be great if you're in Birmingham. A lot of people getting worked up and reacting to our fire safety expert who came on and said that it's okay to have a fire in the back garden as long as you do it within reason. So don't burn anything which is likely to cause a toxic problem. So only burn paper, cardboard, wood's okay as long as it has been painted, and then everything else just shove it down the toilet. I mean, that's basically seems to be his advice. A lot of you saying, has he gone completely mad? I mean, there is that problem. They've issued a wildfire alert. There's also a wildlife alert actually in Birmingham as well, because there's loads of wildlife running around eating everything. Yeah, so it's a bad problem, but we're taking advice from all of you. A lot of you have things to say about shoplifting as well. A few weeks ago, we were waiting to buy some cherries from a Chelmsford market stall, says Don in Chelmsford. A man turned up and started eating the cherries while he was on his phone. Nothing was said, and we actually paid for ours. I mean, I can see people doing that out of like the pick and mix you used to do when you were waiting in line with the kids, you know, and they would start eating the stuff and you'd go, you know, sorry, they've eaten some of it, and they'd probably let you off, generally speaking. Let's get a voice note from Simon on Birmingham.
Oh, Mike, this is where we're at, is it? So we're now discussing what to burn in Birmingham. Oh, God. I need to go for a walk. Really? Oh. Anyway, this is Simon from Devon. We ain't got that problem here, thankfully, but I might have a swim in the sewage. See you, mate. Bye.
Simon from Devon. Blimey, it's not good, is it? I mean, there's sewage everywhere, there's rubbish everywhere, the streets are dangerous, you know, if you're lucky if you don't get stabbed on the way to the shop, and if you get to the shop, there's nothing to buy because it'll be nicked by a lot of shoplifters. You know, just don't bother going out. No wonder, maybe Gen Z have got it right. You never know. We're going to be talking in this hour to Robbie Moore, Shadow Minister, Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. That's quite timely. And he's had quite a lot to say as well about Labour's U-turn, Labour's betrayal on the grooming gangs front. We'll talk to him as well. The shoplifting epidemic, we'll take your views on that as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Also, we've got Migrant of the Day, a man from Iran who can't be sent home because he's got too many friends on Facebook. And he's been making some comments on Facebook about the Tehran regime and how awful they are. Absolutely incredible. Also, Rachel Reeves in more trouble for taking yet another freebie. When is this woman ever going to learn that that is not the way a Chancellor of the Exchequer should be conducting herself in public office? Surely, must be time for her to chuck it all in, mustn't it? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Brian from Durham says this. I mistakenly heard BBC News this morning. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. Big piece on organised crime, vape shops and barbers being a new phenomenon and police cracking down. What a farce. Been going on for years. All migrants and asylum seekers are running them, but they're the victims, apparently. Yeah, the BBC, I just don't even bother. Jessica says, Mike, remember the TV show where rich people lived on benefits for a week? Wouldn't it be a good idea if government ministers had to live for a week in an area full of migrants hanging around? Says Jess in Dover. Yeah, and also maybe in a street in Birmingham where nobody's emptying the bins, for heaven's sake. Damon says, Mike, Damon from Wigan, the public should demand an inquiry into the grooming gangs. Our own people don't count. It's absolutely unforgivable, and the entire government should hang their heads in shame. Damon, thanks for that. We've got lots coming in like that. Let's talk to Robbie Moore MP now, Shadow Minister, Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. But Robbie's been very, very hot on the subject of grooming gangs and rape gangs, because he's been very critical of the government, who earlier this week, in the form of Jess Phillips, got up and basically said, in the hopes that nobody would notice, right at the end of the session of Parliament, before it went to an Easter recess, that there will be no national inquiry into grooming gangs, into rape gangs, because they're just going to keep it local, which is not what they said some weeks ago. Robbie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. You've been very vocal on this subject. It seems to me that if the Labour government think it's OK to have a local inquiry because there's justification for it, then why can't they have a national inquiry? Because they can't really have it both ways. I mean, yesterday Keir Starmer said there's no need to have a national inquiry because we've already had one and we haven't enacted what it said we should do. Well, surely by that logic, there's no point in having a local one either.
Well, look, and this is the absolute frustration. So you take Keighley, an area where I represent within the Bradford district, where I've been consistently calling for a rape gang inquiry ever since I was elected, mentioning the issue about 40 or so times in the House of Commons chamber. Yet we have a local Labour-controlled authority that have refused every call to back a local inquiry. And then we have the national government refusing to step in and say to an area like Bradford District Council that we should have an inquiry forced on them by government. So you end up in a scenario where I have been making a lot of noise about this issue consistently, where I have clearly said, and I'm not the only one, where if there was an inquiry across the Bradford district, it would dwarf that in terms of the scale of Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, Oldham, where we've had previously, but yet not local government or national government is willing to do the right thing and implement an inquiry.
And is your sense of why that is tied to many people's view that actually this is more of a cover-up than it is a kind of a wish to see this just disappearing? It's not that they don't want to look into it, it's that they really are frightened of being of people looking into it.
Well, absolutely. And that is incredibly frustrating. You need as much transparency and openness on this issue as possible, not only to reinstall trust back in with the victims, the survivors that have been subjected to such heinous crime for so long, but also you need to ensure that those organisations that have had safeguarding responsibility, or indeed the perpetrators themselves, are held robustly to account. And no local authority, when they know they have done wrongdoing, like I'm sure that is the case within Labour-run Bradford Council, that they will not want to instigate an inquiry. And that is why it is the morally right thing for the government to step in and instigate a statutory inquiry that has the powers to compel witnesses to come forward so that we can address this issue robustly once and for all.
And you put out a statement today on your social media talking about a retired police officer who says that he was threatened with arrest amid the stories circulating about abuse gangs and rape gangs in Bradford. I mean, that's an extraordinary revelation, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is absolutely extraordinary. And this is work that's been done by reporter and investigator Charlie Peters, who has uncovered that an individual who has a huge amount of experience as a retired police officer working on this was subjected to effectively being told to be quiet. This is where the system is absolutely failing and not listening to valid concerns that not only been made by victims and survivors, but concerns that have been made also by the likes of retired police officers that have been quite validly making those concerns, but no one is listening, which is why it is the duty right now of the Home Secretary to make an announcement on the back of these findings that have come out today by Charlie Peters and put in place an inquiry, something that we have been calling for consistently now across the Bradford district. But this needs to happen at a national level, where we know that there are about 45, 50 towns where concerns of gang rape, child sexual exploitation has happened, and it is about time where we have a national scandal of this nature that the government of the day get to grips with it and provide that reassurance and that proper justice to those many victims and survivors that have been impacted by this for so long.
Let's just have a look at what Keir Starmer had to say about this yesterday, because I want to ask you a couple of questions about his response to it.
Of course, I accept the argument that there should be wider inquiries. There have been a number of inquiries. We've had hundreds of recommendations. We've had a national inquiry with 22 recommendations. My strong belief is we've got to implement those recommendations. At the moment, and under the last government, they just stacked up and sat on a shelf. So they need to be implemented. We're now implementing the recommendations from the national inquiry. 17 of them we're taking forward. Of course, if there's further local inquiries that are needed, then we put some funding behind that and they should happen. But I don't think that simply saying we need more inquiries when we haven't even acted on the ones that we've had is necessarily the only way forward.
Now, he's referring, Robbie, to inquiries that were held under the last Tory government. He's saying those recommendations were not enacted. Is he right about that?
Well, the ICSA report that was carried out by Professor Alexis Jay had 22 recommendations, and I've been advocating for those recommendations to be put in place in full since the report was announced. They should have been put in place under the last administration, and indeed I urge the government to get those recommendations put in place as soon as possible, and I welcome the announcement that that will happen. We don't know the time frame yet, but that's why I'm going to put as much pressure on the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary as possible. But when it comes to local inquiries, we need to acknowledge that the ICSA report did not specifically focus on gang rape and child sexual exploitation. It looked at child sexual abuse in the broadest of senses. And when you represent Keighley or the Bradford district and have been making these concerns quite validly consistently for so long, it is deeply frustrating that even the Prime Minister is not acknowledging that. And I invite the Prime Minister to meet with me in Bradford, in Keighley, with the victims and the survivors, and let's see if he changes his tune, because at the moment, just simply allocating money dripping out from the Home Office to areas like Bradford that have consistently advocate they don't want that spotlight to be shone across the Bradford district is deeply frustrating, and I urge the Prime Minister to get a grip on this issue.
Yes, because you've also very much highlighted the fact that, you know, it's not simply about those perpetrators who did those ghastly things to such young children, because they were children, many of them. It's about the administration of those councils. It's about the police involvement, surely, as well. So it's not really good enough to have the councils and the police investigating themselves. Surely you need an overarching body to do the whole thing.
Absolutely. Openness and transparency is key and at the heart of this. You cannot end up in a scenario which this government seems to be creating, where local authorities are being empowered to mark their own homework. That does not result in any significant change, indeed any reassurance to those victims and survivors. That's why it needs to be truly independent. And it's incredibly frustrating that on the back of the announcement that was made by the Home Secretary in January, that did indicate that there would be 5 additional local inquiries, that £5 million would be allocated towards, that now seems to be watered down, and we're not going to get that. And when, again, I come back to the point that when you have a local authority like Bradford Council that do not even want that inquiry, indeed they released a statement just yesterday strengthening their position that they don't want that additional openness and transparency, it asks the question quite validly, why? So why on earth is this government not doing the right thing and holding their own local authorities to account? It is shameful, and the government, again, need to get a grip, and I call on the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary to do so.
The government, though, of course, are in denial about a great many things. I mean, they tell us that they're making us richer. They tell us they're putting money into our pockets. They're telling us that NHS waiting lists are coming down. I've got a whole load of evidence from various people who have been in touch with me to say that they're having cancellations happening to them all the time. They get moved from one list to another. The waiting list is down also because they've removed 300,000 people from it as a result of basically cancelling what treatment they say they no longer need. A lot of people saying to me, I keep getting these letters saying, do you still need the treatment? And they're saying, well, we're not doctors, you know, we think we do, and then they get stricken from the list. And so there's a whole host of things. Then we find out today Rachel Reeves has had yet another freebie, which she said she would never do again. I mean, the government, I think, is perhaps the least trusted government that we've ever had.
Well, and this is in this month, where we are seeing employers' national insurance, business rates, we are seeing minimum wage, all increasing. We're seeing a huge amount of uncertainty associated with inheritance tax for many family businesses. And yet the government are not focusing at all on providing that reassurance to our many family businesses, hardworking businesses that keep our local economies going in places like Keighley, where I represent. It is deeply frustrating. Business confidence is at an all-time low. Indeed, I was with one of my manufacturing businesses, a mighty business in Keighley, just yesterday, but yet the narrative that they were communicating to me is they are deeply concerned about the additional overheads that is being put on them by the government's choices. That is why the government need to realise that through the choices that they are making, it is going to negatively impact local economies, local family businesses, and local economic growth. And I fear going forward if the government do not change direction.
Indeed. And one final one for you. I mean, Birmingham is in such a bad way right now. I can't even begin to think of how long it's going to take to fix, even if they manage to come to some agreement in the next few days. The streets are getting filthier, the rubbish is piling higher, the rats are increasing in size, you know, the lawlessness is probably off the scale. Why can't they seem to sort that out?
Again, this is a Labour-run local authority in Birmingham. You would think that a Labour government would be able to step in almost immediately and sort this issue out. It is clear that they are not even willing to do so. Only warm words seem to be coming out from this government, and none of those local Labour MPs seem to have the robustness in them to hold the government to account to make sure that this problem is resolved. But yet, who is being penalised? Those hard-working families and residents in Birmingham who are not only faced with a huge dramatic increase in council tax, but their rubbish not even being collected, the very basic service that a local authority should be provided. We're seeing rats the size of cats running around Birmingham, and indeed hygiene related issues. Even the health secretary has come out and said that he has concerns, but yet no one in the government seems to be willing to sort the problem out, and it is residents that are facing the price. Deeply, deeply unfair.
It's unbelievable. Robbie, great to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Robbie Moore MP, also Shadow Minister for the Department of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA. Let's get a voice note from Sally on Birmingham.
Oh dear. Is this really Britain today? Sally, Lincolnshire.
Sally, listen, that's exactly how I feel when I see some of this stuff. It's ridiculous, isn't it? And in Somerset, what a fantastic idea, Mike. Put food down the drain and feed the rats. They will soon be as big as donkeys. Brilliant show. Maybe we should get some of those, those Venezuelan gang members into Birmingham. They can eat them. They're eating the cats. We get them eating the rats. That may be the way. Mike, I can't cope with you laughing, says Emma. If we don't laugh, we will cry. Lunatics running this country. Anyway, I'm off to deposit some salad down the bog. Yeah, be careful about some of the harder bits of it. Mike says, Clarkie in the Highlands, great show as always. My mum used to put leftovers down the loo. It's something I've carried over into my own life. Things like mashed potatoes, peas, etc., sweet corn goes down the loo, whether it's been eaten or not. I wouldn't stick a chicken carcass down there. Soft stuff is fine. Well, that's all right then, Clarkie. Crikey. I have no idea. I mean, how do people live? It's extraordinary, isn't it? This one from Christine on the Isle of Wight. I'm surprised the fire expert didn't mention not putting aerosol cans, etc. on the fires. All they need now in Birmingham is exploding bonfires. Thank you for your great show, keeping us all sane. I mean, you have to be insane to be able to keep it all together, don't you? Incredible. It's Gaff Prone Friday, so here's another one from Ian Collins.
Let's move to this story, Alan. David Lammy attacking Kemi Badenoch for cheerleading after Israel bans 2 Labour MPs, Yuan Yang and it's not even hard to say. Abtissam Mohammed were barred from Israel, accused of promoting anti-Israel sentiment and supporting boycotts.
Yeah, not easy to say that one. Ian from Tenerife goes, I just tried to put an old mattress down the toilet. A little head popped up and said that will cost you a tenner, mate, if you want to put that down there. Keep up the good work. This is Talk.
we should have racist policies for hiring police because these people come to this country and don't learn English. Doesn't seem the right priority at all.
Julia, it's not racist. It's perfectly legal under the Equalities Act 2010 to have positive action.
It's racist. It might be legally racist, but it's racist.
Well, how is it racist, Julia? Giving somebody else, giving them the opportunity to apply, helping them.
If you discriminate between people based on the colour of their skin, that's racism.
When you heard that yesterday from Jess Phillips, the self-styled I Stick Up for Women, what does that do to your gut at that moment?
It destroyed me. My stomach turned. I've met with Jess. I met once at Westminster and I met her a month ago in Manchester. I feel absolutely manipulated.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 24 minutes past 9. We're here with you until 10, of course. When it's time for Alex Phillips, she'll take you through the next 3 hours. Matt in Brighton says, Vietnam serves up roasted rats. Apparently it tastes just like chicken. Birmingham could cook up a 200,000-tonne rat curry. It'll probably smell great. Well, you could. I mean, people do eat them, you know. They eat guinea pigs in Peru, don't they? Joanna from Salisbury says, oh, my God, Birmingham, Arnold Tarling, it's a bit too late for what you're suggesting. They would need mountain-sized burning piles and the water board will be going crazy down the loos. I'm surprised some of the yobs haven't set fire to the rubbish. And Stuart in Perthshire says, Mike, I lived in a flat that had a waste disposal unit in the kitchen sink, so you can put your food waste down the larger than normal plug hole, and a blade spun around and chopped it all up and flushed it all away. No different to putting food down the toilet. Have a great weekend. And finally, Tony. I mean, this, I think, takes the biscuit, really, for the state of the nation. At my train station, a tiny bookcase where people left and took books has been removed as it was apparently a fire risk after an inspection by the fire brigade. This country is screwed. Let's talk to Tom Holder, Head of Communications at the British Retail Consortium, though, because certainly one thing is going wrong in this country. If it's not the state of the fire brigade, it's the state of the streets of Birmingham. It's also the state of our shops and the fact that people are shoplifting absolutely in the billions and billions. 22 billion, I think it cost last year. 55,000 episodes of shoplifting going on. The front page of The Sun today, bacon take from Greggs. Basically, brazen thieves filmed stripping shelves bare across Britain because nobody's stopping them. Tom, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
This is a terrible story, this. I mean, I'm getting lots and lots of anecdotal contributions, as you can imagine, from our audience saying what they've seen out there, what they've seen security guards do, how some security guards try and fight back, others just let people take stuff away. I mean, something's going to have to be done, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. Overall, retail crime costs retailers around 2.2 billion a year.
Yeah.
And this number has been rising steadily since the pandemic, which itself had been a big high point.
I mean, how on earth, though, do you stop people from just walking in and walking out with stuff if they think that's okay to do because they don't fear repercussions? There's something wrong further up the chain, it seems to me, that, you know, we've all been taught not to steal. You know, these people apparently haven't.
It does suggest some structural issues there. I think the difficulty, you know, we often expect security guards to go in rugby tackling people and, you know, hauling them back. But in truth, you know, you don't know if these people are armed, you don't know what the situation is. And actually, most large retailers will recommend that, you know, people don't intervene, that staff and colleagues don't sort of charge in there. Even if they manage to sort of catch someone, there's a question of what happens if the police take hours to arrive. How are you meant to, you know, hold someone there? So it's a really difficult situation. And alongside this rise in theft is a rise in violence and abuse against shop workers, which is really concerning. Over 2,000 incidents every single day against shop staff.
Yes, I mean, we've had people, again, getting in touch saying, you know, one particular gentleman said that his partner works in a shop. She challenged somebody from stealing something who threatened her that she would come back later and stab her with a knife.
Yeah, I mean, situations like that are appalling. And, you know, these are people working in retail are hardworking people who are there effectively to serve us as the customers. And the way that, you know, a very small minority of us are treating these people is horrendous. And what we need is a bigger clampdown from the police. Retailers are already spending about £1.8 billion a year on measures. It might be security, CCTV, you know, the little alarm tags, things like that. But many of these people, particularly where gangs appear to be involved, are undeterred by these measures. They'll come in, they'll simply sweep everything off the shelves into bags and run out. And, you know, that can be quite terrifying for customers or colleagues who are in stores.
Is there not also a problem just with kids? I mean, again, another anecdotal piece of evidence came in from Canterbury. A guy who works down there. He said most of the people that come in and steal from our shop, which is a local supermarket, are just kids, you know, teenagers. And, you know, we've all been teenagers. Sometimes you did stupid stuff, but it seems to me there's a sort of epidemic now of teenagers not worrying about being arrested because they know nothing's really going to happen to them.
I mean, I don't have the sort of demographics, and maybe there is an issue with younger people. Certainly, I think gangs often will groom younger people into these types of things. But overall, I think the issue is we need the police to really clamp down. We need a much higher prosecution rate. We need people to be captured. But at the moment, the same gangs they'll start in one city. They'll go to the 3 big stores they know. They'll swipe all the high-value items, which they know where they are. They'll be in and out in a few minutes, and they'll simply roll on to the next town to move on to those, you know, same 3 stores in the next town. And that's a real issue. This money that retailers both are losing from crime and also spending on crime prevention would be far better used trying to lower prices for everyone. So in that sense, it is not a victimless crime. We all pay for the cost of retail crime every time we go to the shops, and, you know, are honest shoppers who pay.
Yeah, sure. And what does it mean for things like insurance? I mean, if you run a shop and you're likely to have people stealing stuff, I mean, do you need insurance against them suing you in case you do tackle them in some way?
I mean, certainly insurance will cover some, but I think it often just doesn't work. You know, any of us who have sort of content insurance and have ever been burgled, there's always a moment of wondering, well, you know, is it even worth it, or am I just going to pay even more next year in insurance? So sometimes that can be a very difficult one. I think a lot of retailers end up absorbing a lot of these costs, except maybe where there are like super high value items that do need insurance.
Right. Because you're going to end up in some ways, aren't you? I mean, we're already seeing bits of it where you've got some supermarkets at the sort of higher end of the market and even the lower end of the market putting, you know, safety tags on meat and steak and stuff like that. Putting, you know, I've seen in various different sort of chemists, you've got perfumes being put behind lock and key. I mean, when I lived in Glasgow, there was an off licence that actually didn't let you into the shop at all. You had to kind of do your business through a little gated sort of, you know, a window with bars on it, and you could never actually pick anything. You had to just ask for it, and they had to go and get it, a bit like those nighttime garages. I mean, is that how we're going to end up in the high street?
Well, possibly. There's one large retailer or one large supermarket that's installing sort of large perspex boxes for their staff to stand inside of the tills, where a lot of the high value items are kept within, and those sort of perspex boxes are theoretically sort of impossible to get inside. So maybe things are moving that way. I think, you know, when it comes to the violence and abuse, this new standalone offence for being violent against a retailer can't come soon enough. We need that to apply now. The government is sort of putting through the law, and we actually need to make sure that everyone is covered by it in terms of retail staff. So not just the stock floor people, but delivery people who often end up being subjected to horrible abuse just for delivering the goods that, you know, we ordered at the door. So a real concern there all round.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to talk to you. Tom Holder, thank you very much indeed. Head of Communications, British Retail Consortium. A terrible story on the front page of The Sun. I mean, a fantastic investigation into shameless and lawless behaviour. They've got pictures from Leeds, Bristol, Brighton, Nottingham, Southampton, London. 55,000 thefts every single day across the UK. £2.2 billion in 2024. Shoplifting cost to the retail economy. Just incredible. People walking into Greggs, and they've singled out Greggs, but they could also single out other places where the staff are behind a counter and they're literally just picking stuff up. It's quite hard to believe. I've seen videos of this before, picking stuff up off the shelves and just walking out with it. Not even attempting to look at somebody who might be asking them to pay, not even bothering to walk up anywhere near the till, not walking out because it's busy, just walking out with the stuff, knowing full well that nobody will do anything. Rachel says, morning Mike, where does your fire expert suggest people put their pets' poop and litter? I don't know. Chris says, I've heard it all now. Idiocracy has officially arrived. I'm 45 years old and never ever in my life have I known someone to say, don't worry about clearing the dishes, darling. I'll take it up to the loo with me shortly. Yeah, absolute nutter. Gives a whole new meaning to picnic by the sea. Let's get a voice note from Ian on Birmingham.
Morning, Mike. It's Ian from Nottingham. Hope you're well. Great show as always. Your caller who suggested shoving stuff down the toilet, food, whatever, and burning things. Are you sure he's not a member of this government? Maybe it's Ed Miliband in disguise.
Yeah, you might say that. Rachel says, just want to say I absolutely love your show. Makes mornings so much better. Keep up the good work. Well, listen, I'm delighted to bring you any kind of news, but especially if it's some good news. I'm not sure we've got good news to tell you about. Carl from Telford says, I know the human rights lawyers are a pain, but with all these illegals, it's a job that pays. Once the illegals have gone, unemployment will rise for these human rights lawyers. Well, it couldn't come soon enough, could it? Absolutely right. Lots of you wanted to get in touch about security guards, supermarkets and all that. Paul in Cornwall says Spanish supermarket security guards have batons and handcuffs and they use them. I'm sure the people stealing from UK stores would think twice about doing the same in Spain. We need to train, license and pay a higher level of security guard. Well, the same goes for the US. You know, when they decided to sort of water down the punishments in San Francisco because it was California, people used to just run into department stores and run out with up to $1,000 worth of stuff because they knew they wouldn't be done. But you try that in Texas, where the guy behind the shop window has probably got a gun. You're probably not going to steal anything from him, as he's going to shoot you. Simple as that. 9:35.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:36. I got this from Wardy. He says, morning, Mike. I'm not sure if I understood the advice. I've just set fire to my toilet. Great show. Yeah, thanks for that. It's not Birmingham now, it's Birmingham, says David in Clacton. Well, it's Birmingham. I think. How about this from Julie? She says, I think the people of Birmingham should be thanking the rats. At least they're trying to get rid of the rubbish in their tummies. I live just outside of Birmingham and the state of some areas has been deteriorating for some time. I've just got this as well from Paul and Beryl in Margate. My wife and I were parked up yesterday afternoon on Ramsgate's harbour side after having a drink and going for a bracing walk. On returning to our car, we found this note tucked under our Astra's rear window windscreen wiper. We have one of Talk's bumper stickers adhered to the car's tail light. The word is spreading. Great show as ever. Very good. Well, thank you very much indeed for letting us know. The word is spreading. More and more people are getting their bumper stickers. And if you haven't had yours yet, please do keep the faith. We are going to try and get to every single person that asked for one. We've got a new batch being ordered at some point. As soon as it's ordered, I will tell you where it's going and when it's coming. After hearing your expert earlier, I'm torn between burning an old car tyre in my back garden or chopping it up and flushing it, says Paul. Birmingham in spirit. And Steve says, I just found a rat in my loo with a clipboard and a high-vis vest. Do you have an appointment? I mean, this is getting ridiculous, isn't it? Let's talk to Mark Lehane, Executive Head Teacher of the Wootton Academy Trust, former Special Advisor at the Department for Education. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
A couple of things to pick up with you today. The Welsh Government have apparently been offering ethnic minority students £5,000 more in grants than their white counterparts training to become a teacher. It's all part of Welsh Labour's administration's anti-racist Wales action plan. These stories pop up from time to time. They're never a good idea, are they?
I think lots of your viewers and listeners will have a bit of concern about the fact that there's extra money to get people into teaching that's linked to someone's ethnicity. That's not something people do anything about. It's just what they are. I mean, on the one hand, anything we can do to get more people to come and teach in our schools, that's got to be a good thing. We know that's been really tough in recent years.
Yeah.
But my worry about this is it could backfire. The majority of people that live in Wales and train to teach in Welsh schools are of a white British background. We don't want to do anything that might put those people off going into teaching as well. It feels pretty unfair as well. And let's be honest, Welsh schools sadly have got much bigger fish to fry and much bigger things to worry about because their standards in Welsh schools, as we've seen in international comparisons over the last 20 years, have collapsed. They've now got some of the worst performing schools in the United Kingdom, whereas England schools have focused on other things and risen up the international rankings. So I guess I'd be saying to the Welsh Government, think really carefully about where you're putting your money, and this is probably not the place to do it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, I know that in Wales, I know people who live in Wales who moved there from England and suddenly found themselves being subjected to the Welsh Language Act, and their children had to learn Welsh. But I presume all the teachers don't have to learn Welsh before they teach, do they?
No, that's not my understanding, although there is a bigger bursary for people that want to train to teach and teach in Welsh medium schools. So again, the Welsh Government are entitled to do that. I would just argue with limited money for the public sector to spend, whether this is the best thing to do. They'd be better off focusing on things like training their teachers to teach phonics to all their children, particularly if you've got lots of children new to the Welsh school system from immigrant backgrounds where they don't speak English as a first language. There's better things they can do with their cash.
Yeah, exactly right. But also these kinds of policies, I mean, we saw something similar to this in the West Yorkshire Police this week, where they said that, they only want to recruit people who are from non-white, segments of the population, which, of course, is immediately put everybody's backs up and said, well, it's all very well if you want to have positive discrimination. Nothing wrong with that, perhaps, some might say, although if you take it too far, it's a bad thing. But why would you, if you had actually said we're going to block any applications for recruitment from ethnic minorities, there would be hell to pay. The fact that you can do it with regards to white people is wrong. And the same here. it just creates kind of division in society, doesn't it, which you don't need.
Well, I mean, the key thing is we want to make sure that we're recruiting people into all walks of life from a big variety of backgrounds as possible. We don't want anyone from any particular background thinking, oh, that job isn't for me, whether it's the police or whether it's teaching, because we want everyone to think about it. But we've got to be really careful that it doesn't backfire. And the last thing we want to do, particularly when we're a multi-ethnic society, the last thing we want to do is to divide people rather than focus on what we've got in common. And if I was looking at schools in Wales, there's a really exciting challenge there, which is improving standards. The last thing you want to do is put off a load of people from applying thinking that they're not wanted.
Yes, quite. And another one I wanted to talk to you about, a review of Cambridge's teaching methods, apparently, which wants to create a healthy work-life balance. They've decided that what they want to do is scrap the centuries-old tradition of telling students what their exam rankings are, because they think it might improve their mental health if they don't know.
Yeah, now I'm going to do the old git thing now. When I was graduated 25 years ago from there, that was in the days where they used to print out the results and stick them on a wall, so you could not only see what your result was, but what everyone else's result was and where you did against it. Now listen, no one goes to a top university expecting it to have an easy life. In fact, if we want people to go off to academically elite places, we want them to work hard.
Yeah.
We want them to make breakthroughs. But like you said, there is a balance to be had there. But let's not mollycoddle our youngsters. If you're going off to Oxford, Cambridge and top universities, you're going to work hard. Your work-life balance is going to be different. And if that's not for you, that's fine. But maybe other alternative places should be where you consider going. I mean, I know enough about student life, and I've got a couple of students of my own currently living occasionally with me. There's certainly not what you would call a culture of overwork in any place that they attend. I said to one of them once, how are you getting on? In the first year, I think he was there up in Manchester, and he said, oh, it's all right. He said, I don't always make all the lectures. And I said, how many have you got? And he went, 3. And I said, what, 3 a day? And he went, no, 3 a week. And I'm going... Yeah, I mean, I think what has changed, I think we've got to give the younger generation some credit. there has definitely been a positive side in recent years where not only are they working harder at school, but lots of them do have harder working habits. They are putting more hours in. Maybe it's because of tuition fees. They are putting more hours in generally. That's what my academic friends tell me. But this idea that you can't know how you've done against other people because it will damage your mental health.
Yeah.
It's just not true. It's one of the things. The other thing is, if you go to one of these elite institutions at university, you've already had the big step up. You've already got a big advantage there. Whether you come top or middle or bottom of that year group, you're always going to have an advantage in life, and you can put that university on your CV when you can talk about the networks of friends that you've made there. So I think again, the most important thing we can do as adults, for those undergraduates, to say, just relax, chill about it. It doesn't matter where you come. That said, they are still going to be able to see where their ranking is. Invariably, lots of them will find out what their ranking is because they'll ask, because they'll want to know.
Right.
We want to know what we've done relative to our mates. So this feels like an interesting story on a quiet news week.
Well, yeah, surely, though, it's not a quiet news week. I mean, we haven't done one of those for years. But, I mean, surely the point about all of this as well is to prepare kids for the real world. And I know that the real world in recent times, post-COVID, has sometimes become a bit unreal. But, you know, they should be ready for disappointment. They should be ready to know that there's a guy sitting next to them or a woman sitting next to them who might be better than they are or cleverer than they are or smarter than they are. So they might have to work a bit harder. What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that at all. And of course, the other really important lesson when you're at university is it actually probably doesn't matter whether you came 125th or 130th or whatever in a year group. Life goes on. Real life doesn't have rankings quite like that. It's not a bad lesson to learn.
Yeah.
That how hard you work will have an impact on how you do, but there will always be people that do better than you. And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a person. But you can't expect to go to an elite institution and not work really, really hard. Look, we grumbled about it when I was there 30 years ago, that there were other students from different countries that worked really hard to get bursaries to come, and they were in the library at all hours, and they made the rest of us look bad. You grow up and you realise that's all part of life's rich tapestry.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, Rachel Reeves came 26th in a chess competition and calls herself a chess champion. And she's now Chancellor of the Exchequer. So there you go. There's a lesson for all of us. Listen, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Mark Lehane, sensible man, Executive Head Teacher at Wootton Academy Trust, former Special Advisor at the Department for Education. Let's have a voice note from Stephen.
Morning, Mike. Beautiful day. Great show as always. You know, this shoplifting stuff, what they've started doing in my local convenience store, where you get these alarms when you walk in and out, like as if you've nicked something. Well, they're doing it on every single customer now to deter shoplifting. So when I walk in, everyone's looking round at me because alarm's going off.
Right.
And I'm thinking, am I being treated like a criminal or what? Even though I've never nicked out in my life. And I never would. It's like, they've got to get a grip of it. It's absolutely got out of control. Out of control. But like I say, great show as always. Where are we heading with it? I don't know. Fed up with it.
I mean, Stephen, everybody is. Absolutely feel your pain. One from somebody doesn't give a name. I work for a large supermarket and I know of 3 security staff that have been fired in the last 12 months after trying to stop shoplifters. They are now told just to monitor them, ask them to leave and possibly call the police. Possibly. Mike, if security guards can't or won't tackle looters, says Jackie, why are those businesses employing them? It's another cost on that business that seems to have no value. Love the show. True. A woman in Sainsbury's in Alnwick in Northumberland invited a staff member to step outside for a fight when she was apprehended for walking out with 2 bags of shopping for which she hadn't paid. The shoplifter just walked out. Deary me, that's from Sue's. Incredible, isn't it? Morning, Mike. Says Bob. Raise shoplifting in Greggs. They need to follow McDonald's and go to digital ordering with payment made at the point of order. Yeah, but that means they don't have anything actually stacked up in the shop, and so somebody has to go behind. I mean, you can do it that way, and just means everything is behind a counter. Maybe that's the way forward. I think the easiest way to rid Birmingham of rats is to get Ed Millipede to entice them out of the city with his ukulele, therefore curing 2 problems, the rats and getting rid of a crazy idiot, says Kevin in Sheffield. Very good. Coming up tonight at 7 o'clock, it's the 250th show for Plank of the Week. We've made yet another milestone. We've been going for, I don't know, nearly 5 years, is it now? 250 episodes. Have a look. I've just discovered that this cake, the 250th anniversary cake, right, is a woke cake. I don't know why Chuck's bought it. It's gluten-free. It says no nuts, no milk, just love.
Sounds delicious.
Oh,
no.
Live, laugh. And you can cut out the little sign on the back that says it's enjoyed by everyone. Don't mind what your gender is.
There's a lot of white privilege on the top of that.
Peanut-free, nut-free,
fun-free,
gluten-free. That's what I'm saying. That's at 7 o'clock tonight. Coming up next, we're going to get some more fire advice from the fire expert.
We should have racist policies for hiring police because these people come to this country and don't learn English. Doesn't seem the right priority at all.
Julia, it's not racist. It's perfectly legal under the Equalities Act 2010 to have positive action.
It's racist. It might be legally racist, but it's racist.
Well, how is it racist, Julia? Giving somebody else, giving them the opportunity to apply, helping them.
If you discriminate between people based on the colour of their skin, that's racism.
When you heard that yesterday from Jess Phillips, the self-styled I stick up for women, what does that do to your gut at that moment?
It destroyed me. My stomach turned. I've met with Jess. I met once at Westminster and I met her a month ago in Manchester. I feel absolutely manipulated. Not by just Jess, but the Labour Party.
Did you believe... See, I'm really mystified by Jess. Somebody said just now...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 10 minutes till 10. I've got this. What is the point of this government, says Phil in Chelmsford? They seem to go out of their way to wind up the country while pandering to the Muslim population. Why don't Labour just disappear and let the country have a free-for-all? We probably end up being much better off. It's not just the economy going down the gurgler, it's now the whole country. What state are we going to be in after another 3.5 years of this shower? Keep up the good work. Phil in Coventry says, I've worked all my adult life. I was told honesty pays. I was told to save for my old age. I've never been out of work and I've paid my taxes, bought my house. Now, in old age, I feel betrayed. I'm taxed on savings. I've been taxed on earning, taxed by the council for next to zero services, and my family will be taxed when I die. Was it all worth it? Let's get a voice note from Steve.
Hello, Steve from Murfield. In Greg's a couple of weeks ago, just in queue, minding my own business. The guy just walks in, helps himself to whatever he wants in fridge. Walks out, nobody says a word. Another guy, 5 minutes later, same again. Got whatever he wanted, walked out. Nobody said a word. Ridiculous.
It is extraordinary how this has suddenly happened, and it must be because people just have worked out that they see other people doing it and getting away with it. They decide they want to do the same thing. It really is quite extraordinary. Leon says this. Mike, Rudy Giuliani did it in the US. The only way you stop this is by no tolerance crackdown by the police, judiciary, etc. You can't excuse someone stealing baby formula as that person might be spending their money on cigarettes and stealing the baby stuff because they can get away with it. There is a gap in the market for a security firm with martial arts skills that are prepared to tackle these petty thieves. I think you're right. I think if you start cracking down on it and start locking these people up, suddenly it will stop. You know, look what they did during the riots. They stopped the riots. And, you know, there are many arguments about the whys and wherefores of what happened during that time. But they stopped the riots because the police went in mob-handed, heavy-handed, and started arresting people and locking them up. And it stopped, literally overnight. Earlier, we spoke to Arnold Tarling on whether you can burn your rubbish if you live in Birmingham. Now, he apparently is a fire safety expert, and this is what he said.
The main problem we have is that the amount of food which is being thrown out along with the rubbish, which is attracting the vermin, the foxes, the rats, the mice, cockroaches and the like. You know, we've got another means of disposal for food waste, down the toilet pan. Clean it out, you know, providing it's not large bones or bits and pieces like that which would clog the drainage. You know, most of it you can actually put down there.
Isn't that going to block the drains, though?
Only small things, you know, your ordinary food waste, you know, your scraps, make sure it's all mashed up in small pieces. You know, there's no reason why not. It's the big bits that you don't want going down there.
Because, I mean, I can only one thing worse than Birmingham and their bin crisis would be to have a sort of sewage crisis to go along with it. But is it actually legal, though, to have a fire in your back garden? If you wanted to have, you know, a bonfire or buy one of those incinerators from one of the garden centres, which are selling them to you, because I was under the impression that you can't actually burn anything without permission from the local council.
My understanding is you can burn within reason. It's certain products which you're not allowed to burn and shouldn't be, and that's coming back to the rubber, the plastics, the paints, the treated timbers and bits and pieces.
It's kind of common sense, that, isn't it? I mean, you have to be pretty stupid to think you can burn rubber and plastic. We had a lorry driver pass by Birmingham yesterday. He said he was out on the M6, M42 kind of link-up road, and he said you could smell it. It smelled like you know, those sort of rubbish tips that you find in foreign countries. It just smelled awful.
Yeah, that's basically the food stuffs which are out there, which are rotting down and, you know, attracting the vermin. You know, deal with the food products. You know, if you've got large bones and stuff, maybe put them on top of a small fire so that it then won't attract the vermin when you put it out. But, you know, the general scraps you've got on your plates, that can go down the toilet, providing it's not in large lumps.
Right, okay.
You know, mash it up a bit and dispose of it that way.
Yeah, and so you're not, I mean, I'm assuming you're not going to recommend that people have fires in the back garden, but if you do, just do it sensibly and don't be an idiot.
Do it sensibly, make sure it's dry material that you're burning so you don't produce so much smoke if you are definitely going to be doing it. But, you know, it's difficult times on this. But the inert materials, the things which aren't going to smell, the things that aren't going to, separate them out, bag them up, and put them somewhere where they can be collected at the end of it.
The other problem you're going to have, right, is the weather service, the Met Office has put out a wildfire warning, right, because it's going to be quite warm today, quite warm this weekend. Yeah, would you have to be concerned about starting a wildfire if you put a fire up in the backyard?
Well, you've got that in the backyard. You've also got spontaneous combustion from the amount of rubbish which has been dumped with plenty of oxygen around it, you know, particularly when it's become wet and damp inside it. And then you will.
It could actually go on fire, couldn't it?
Without anyone throwing a match on it.
Could it actually spontaneously combust then?
Yeah, yes. You know, rubbish will combust if it's got the right conditions and the heat on top of materials.
Right.
You know, even if you have, let's say you've done washing and you piled that all up on top of each other, that can end up combusting. I've had situations in sort of hotels which do their own cleaning, which fires caused by spontaneous combustion in their laundry.
Blimey. And that was Arnold Tarling who basically said you can put a load of food waste down the toilet. But, of course, as many people have pointed out, if you do that, there's a risk that you might get the rats even bigger. You know, and there's also a risk that you might sort of set fire to something if it gets overheated. There's too much methane down it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure that's good advice that you should be following. Lou says this in Manchester. Morning, Mike. The lack of respect in this country is a joke. I took this recently on my local canal. She sent us a picture of some fly tipping activity. Apparently, some locals saw a man and their youngest child dragging these wheelie bins the night before. So if people are teaching kids to fly tip and ruin our canals and rivers, it is no surprise that Ginger Whinger thinks he can rob us blind by expecting taxpayers' money for security. Everyone else is taking more than they give to this country. Why not him too? That's, of course, Prince Harry, who's in so much fear for his life that he went to a war zone yesterday to decide whether or not he's going to go back to California with or without protection. We got a message earlier from Kevin in Birmingham who sent us this update. He's been out and about.
So this is... they've actually cleared it all up for us here. Well, come down and done the street. Look, looks great, doesn't it? All these left down here. Look, there's one of my mates. Ooh. Look at the size of that damn thing. Oh, look, it's chewing something. It's chewing a piece of meat, though. Very nice. This is after they've come and cleared it. Look, it's got a piece of meat in its mouth. Oh, I didn't notice that. Dear. Don't look too happy, does it?
It's just a dead rat with a piece of meat in its mouth. It's literally died eating because there's so much food, right? Stuffed to the gunnels. Absolutely incredible. Who knew that Argos had such futuristic and visionary thinking, says Chris in Wallasey. They saw the shoplifting epidemic coming back in the 1970s. Absolutely right. And another one from Alan in Bedford. Why don't shops adopt a payment on entry system where you have to scan your debit card before going in and it debits your account for any goods taken out automatically? Well, they do that. I mean, those new Amazon shops do that, I think. And also the ones in, certainly up in the supermarkets in Europe where they do that, where you can't get out, basically, unless you show them that you've got a receipt. Interesting. Final... actually, we haven't got time, have we? No. Darren from Lawless Britain, I'm sorry, we'll have to play that next week. Alex Phillips is here.